right, John, I think right now you're the only one in here. Can you tell me right now, if I minimize this, can you see where it says Rankin Technical College?
I do not.
Okay. Now this is different. I'm not a Teams guy, I'm a Zoom guy. Don't let that throw you, because just so you're aware of it, there are several people in the class, and many of the people who are in the class are working full-time, so they can't make it. So every session is going to be recorded, including this one. So all I have to figure out then is, let's see, if I do turn the camera on. Now can you see it?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so that's a start. All right. Now, if I go over to here, can you see now a different screen that's got numbers 1 to 10 on it?
No, it's still just your camera.
So it shows just the camera. All right. But now you can see Rankin, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Let's just start then. All right. Okay, the first thing that I want to do is welcome you to the class. There are going to be 8 or 9 people in the class, just so you know. And as I mentioned, that really several of these people are working full time. Now, that said, every day we'll still meet. Every day I will still be recording sessions. Every day we will be going over material. That said, the class, as you can see, meets Monday through Friday from 8:05 a.m. till 11:55 a.m. By no means am I going to sit there and talk for 3 hours and 50 minutes a day. That's not how it works. Today, since it's the first class, and since we're all getting acclimated to the way all of this is, there's going to be a lot of talking. All right. Well, we'll also go over the material in Chapter 1 today. All right. Okay. And don't worry if you don't have the book or whatever, because hopefully I'll be able to bring everything up on screen. If I really continue to run into problems today, they'll be fixed tomorrow, because the afternoon teacher has said that he's willing to come in here. He teaches the hardware section, but he'll come in, and if I'm doing something incorrect, he'll let me know. And I apologize for this. We did a test run first, and it worked just fine. And I was able to change screens. For whatever reason, I'm not able to change screens now. I guarantee you we'll get it all fixed. So don't let that worry you. So let's just take a couple minutes here. The syllabus that I sent you a while ago, as you can see, the syllabus, let's see, let me let him in. There we go. Good morning, Michael.
Morning. Sorry about
right.
that. I was having some issues.
Not a problem. We're having our own issues here. So what I'm doing is I'm just starting to go over the syllabus right now. Again, the name of the course is Programming Fundamentals with C#. Most of the time, I'll just probably refer to it as C# programming. You can see the number here, which is AWD Application and Website Development 1100, L31. All right. And the L just basically it's a distinction, L31, that it's being the main campus is out of Wentzville, even though technically there is no main campus here because the course is being taught online. All right. You can see the semester that it's taught in. You can see the days. Again, we meet Monday through Friday from 8:05 a.m. till 11:55 a.m. And as I've already mentioned to John, and I'll say it again, every lecture will be taped. What I'm trying to do today, because I've been going online to see how well this works, is I am taping it directly through Microsoft Teams, and I'm taping it through Camtasia, which is a screen capture product that I have. The reason that I'm doing both is in case there's a problem with one, then hopefully, I'll be able to still get the tape up with the other one. All right, so let's just go on. As you can see, we meet 80 times. Now, I do want to mention something, that we meet 80 times, and you're going to see this in just a couple minutes, but I want to say it from the get-go. And that is, let's assume that tomorrow, John, that you cannot make class, but you go and you watch the tape afterwards. All right? Well, that has nothing to do with you being present or absent in the class. The way that you are your attendance is taken in an online class is that you will have work that's going to be due not starting this Sunday, but starting a week from Sunday by midnight. You can turn it in any time before that. If you have anything turned in by midnight on Sunday, and I'll always let you know what Sunday that is, if you have anything turned in, you're marked as being present for the week. Does that make sense to both of you?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. All right. And the reason I'm saying that is because I've talked to people who have had problems before taking some of the online courses, not IT courses, but other IT courses. Now, the bad news about that is technically, if you don't turn anything in at all, and I mean nothing, for an entire week, I mark you absent. All right? And since that's considered an entire week, if that happens twice, I technically have to drop you from the class. Now, let's just say that happens to one of you. All right, if that does happen, you can, if there's underlying circumstances, COVID or whatever it happens to be, that's okay. Just let me know, because you can do what's called basically appeal that decision. I have no choice. I have to drop you, but it's very likely I can get you back into the class immediately. So, if that becomes an issue, you get sick, you're in an accident, whatever, just send me an email as soon as you can and let me know. All right. So to go on, this is my information. I will tell you that this is going to be very interesting, because up until about 7:15 this morning, I had been told by one person at Rankin that I would be broadcasting out of the conference room. Well, Ms. Bruggeman, who is our Dean of Academic Affairs, came in at 7:15 and kind of asked me, "What are you doing in this room?" And I said, "What do you mean?" She said, "There is a seated class in here. You have to broadcast out of your office." So the reason I'm telling you that is that's where I am. Her office is literally right next to mine. There is a thin wall between our offices. So what may happen is you may hear doors shutting or whatever, and I'm hoping that doesn't get to be too big of a hindrance for anyone. I've already told them that if it does, I've asked them if I can even go over to our other building at Rankin and find an empty room over there and broadcast. Nobody knows right now whether or not they're going to let me do that. So, all right, so my name is Jeff Scott. My office phone is here. Since I am broadcasting out of the office, I will be around every once in a while at least to answer the phone. But the easiest way to get a hold of me always is using email. All right. As mentioned, I'm in the Wentzville faculty offices, and I'm here every day by 6. So 6 to 8 a.m. Monday through Friday are my office hours. If you send me an email during that time, you'll probably get a response within minutes. All right. I don't want to sit and read to you, but here, when it says program level outcomes, what they mean is once you've taken all 4 of the courses that are in the AWD program, these are the skills that you should acquire. Now, that said, this course that you're in right now has nothing to do with this skill. Nothing. We do not develop and design websites in this class. That was the class that was taught last semester, the AWD1100 Web Development Technologies class. We will this semester, not right away, but probably about halfway or so into the semester, we will talk about object-oriented programming. And if you have no idea what it means, don't worry about it. I guarantee you will have written probably a good 30 or 40 programs before we even get into that. So, if you say, I have no idea what that means, don't let it throw you one way or the other. All right. Then create data-driven web-based applications. We're not going to create web-based applications, but eventually in here, we'll talk about SQL. We will mention stored procedures. We'll talk about LINQ, and we'll talk about .NET data access technologies. So we will cover most of the stuff that's shown in this third bullet right here. All right. And then finally, yes, we will be using a version control system. I'll talk more about that in just a couple minutes. All right. Now, for the course materials, and it looks like I was having problems when I tried changing screens here, But if you go out to this URL right here, and I'll leave that up there while I talk, it shows the book that's used for the class. The book is called Murox C# 7th edition. You can see the authors. That's not that big of a thing. All right. The reason I'm telling you that is if you have not yet purchased the book, all right, you can download for free from that website chapters 2 and 3. They don't have chapter 1 available. Don't worry, I'm going to be going over it in just a little bit. In addition, I have my own YouTube channel, as you can see right here. If you were to go out to that YouTube channel that's right here, right now you'd find there's only one video out there. And that's the video I did at the end of my class last semester, where I explained how we could go into and download Visual Studio 2022, which is the software that we used for the class. All right. And if you haven't done that yet, don't worry about it. We're going to look at it in just a little bit. All right. As I'm talking in here, if something doesn't make sense, you can't hear me or whatever, please just stop me at any time. It's not a problem. All right. So this is the course description. And again, I'm not going to sit and read it to you. Michael was in my class last semester, and I believe he would tell you, I don't like to sit and read stuff to you. I believe you're all capable of reading yourselves. All right, but this is, in a nutshell, what we'll be going over in here. And even more so, these are the 5 or 6 course level outcomes. And ideally, if I can get this to where I can show it and you can look at it, today I'd like to show you a simple C# console program and a simple C# GUI or graphical user interface program, and have you actually try to write those with me. You won't turn them in. There's nothing like that, no pressure on it. Plus, everything that I do, I'm going to save and put out there, and it'll be available by the end of the day today. All right. Other things that we'll talk about in here, you can see this. You will learn fundamental programming concepts starting today. Really more so starting tomorrow, because chapter 1 of the textbook is supposed to get you comfortable with the software that we're going to be using. So that's what we're going to do more than anything else. But I will actually show you today a simple program that'll have variables, that'll talk about branching, that'll talk about loops. You don't have to worry if you don't understand what that stuff means. The stuff we're going to be writing today, and really your first set of assignments, is fairly simplistic. That said, saying that something is fairly simplistic is a relative term. It might be simplistic to me because I've done it for years, whereas for you, if you say, well, I've never done this, it may not seem that simplistic. And don't let that worry you. If as we're going through this, something doesn't make sense to you, please, by all means, let me know. All right? A little later, arrays and collections, that's not going to be for a few weeks yet. So if you don't know what that means, don't worry about it. We'll talk about exception handling and data validation, and all that means is we want to make sure that when we ask the user who's running our program to put in some data, that they put in valid data. And we'll talk about what all that means. And then, like I said, about halfway into the course, we'll get into where we're talking about fundamental OOP or object-oriented programming concepts. So if you don't know what classes are or objects or encapsulation, etc., don't worry about it. It's totally fine. All right. I'm supposed to go over with you the policies, and they are in the Rankin Handbook. You can get to the Rankin Handbook by going out to insiderankin.org. Most of the things that we talk about for policies don't pertain to you because this is not a seated class. So in other words, Michael will tell you last semester there was a day he came in and he had a hat on. I don't care, but Rankin policy says that when you're in a classroom that's going on in Rankin, you don't wear a hat. Now that said, if you're at your home and you're wearing a hat, what am I going to do? Tell you not to wear one? That would be silly. All right? So again, this is an online class and not a seated class. So as I already mentioned to you, assignments will be due every Sunday by midnight. There will be no assignments due this week. The first assignments that you're given will not be due until midnight Sunday. I think it's the 16th. It's a week from this Sunday. All right. I've tried to do a good job of letting you know on the syllabus, which is what we're looking at now, what assignments are due and when they're due. This thing about being marked absent is what I went over with you before. All right. Now it says here, if you have more than 2 absences, I will fill out paperwork to drop you from the course. That's not my decision. That's if I don't do it. If you have missed 2 straight weeks where you've turned in nothing, and I've marked you absent for both those weeks, I automatically get an email from the Rankin business office that says I am to drop you. All right, but again, if that happens, and if there's underlying circumstances, let me know, and I will immediately email you a form. It's a PDF that you can write on where you can appeal it. All right. Okay. Canceled sessions. I will tell you. Let's pretend that tomorrow we get a massive snowstorm. All right, and we get a foot of snow and classes are canceled. Guess what? I can still have class from my home. All right, every night I'm bringing my machine home with me, so you can plan on there being classes every day. Let's talk about the exceptions to that because there's 3 of them. All right, the first one is there is no class a week from Monday on the 17th of January. That's Martin Luther King Day. That is a school holiday. So that is the first day there will be no classes. The second day there will be no classes is about a month later, and that is Monday, the 21st of February, and that is President's Day. And the school calls that a holiday and closes on that day as well. The third day is Friday, April 15th. Now that's historically been known as Good Friday, but we're not supposed to really say that anymore. Call it winter break, call it whatever you want. But this is the first year that Rankin is not giving a spring break. Normally, sometime between mid and late March, the school closes for an entire week. All right, they're not doing that this year. The bad news is you don't get a spring break. The good news is we're actually done on, I believe it's the 29th of April. So most college classes are not going to be done until sometime in May. So you will be done early. All right. Students may be allowed to make up reasonable academic work. So if it's a test day and you email me and you go, hey, I'm really, really sick. Can I take the test tomorrow? We'll work something out. All right. All right. Excused absences doesn't really pertain in here. I know I've had people ask me this more in seated classes before, but they've asked me things like, hey, my grandmother died. And they even come in with a death notice. It's like, if you say your grandmother died, I believe you. The point is, technically, the way the school handles it is there are no such things anymore as excused absences. So again, if you know you're going to be gone for a day, since I am taping this, hopefully you'll be watching the tape. All right. Academic honesty. Let's face it. Let's be real honest in here. If I give you an exam or if I give you homework, it's going to be hard for me to sit there and make sure you're not talking to one another. All right. I'm going to assume always, I try to give everybody the benefit of the doubt. So I'm going to always assume you're doing your own work. If for some reason you're not and you get caught, really the policy here is if you get caught cheating on a homework or cheating on an exam, all right, whatever it happens to be, if you get caught doing that, the first time you get a 0 for the class. You get a 0 for the assignment. If it happens again, then typically you get a 0, you're going to get an F for the class. All right. I have not had that be an issue. I taught before I came to Rankin here. I taught for about 25 years in the Wisconsin Technical College system. Did I have people who cheated? Yes. All right. And typically when I called them out on it, they admitted it. And they got a 0 on that and we went on. But there were very few and far between. All right. This is the grading scale here at Rankin. you'll notice there is no A plus. And as far as ranking is concerned, if you don't get a 74.5 or above, you won't get a D. All right, you get an F. So you need a 74.5 or above. So the line above where I've got it in gray here, you've got to be in there to pass. Okay? So you notice again, A, B plus, B, C plus, etc. Now the way that grades go in, all right, I don't want to change screens because you can all see what I'm doing here, but my inside ranking screen is different than yours. Inside ranking is primarily where you guys are going to go to do things like check your mail. Well, it's also what I do to put in your grades. So eventually your grades are all going to be in there. Probably this weekend I'm going to fill it out, and most of it I don't make visible, but your homework for chapters 1, 2, and 3, etc., that'll be visible. And as we go then into 4, 5, and 6, etc., that will be visible. So you'll know at all times where you stand in here. All right? And what I do is typically I take your lowest test grade and I drop it. So if you don't, anybody can have a bad day. So, if you do get an F on one test, all right, then that's the one that's going to be dropped. All right. This workload table, this is just basically meant to show you that really what we're supposed to tell you is for every hour we meet in class, you can spend anywhere from 0 to 3 hours outside of class working on things. So why do I tell you 0 to 3 hours? Because it depends on the person. Some people have told me that in this class, all right, they have said, you give us enough lab time in here that I get everything done during the class session. Other people have told me that they spend anywhere from a couple hours a night, to maybe 10 or 15 hours a week or whatever outside of class. Some of the stuff will probably come fairly naturally to you. Some of the other stuff will probably be a bit harder to you. All right. One of the things that I sent you in the multiple emails that I sent you before the course started was something from a thing that's called Github. And if you don't know what that is, we're going to go through that in just a few minutes. All right. But it has in there the entire semester, all of the written tests that you'll have. It has all of the homework and all of the labs that you will take. All of that stuff is already in there. All right. You'll notice that 10% of your grade will be these written tests. Each written test is worth about 10 points. And what happens is if you make an attempt, even if all the answers, all the written tests are multiple choice, and they'll range anywhere from 10 questions to 30 questions. But even if you make an attempt and you get half of them right, you'll get a 10 because you've at least shown me that you're making the effort to try. All right? The programs, it's really homework and lab, that's 30%. The hands-on tests, you'll get one for about every 2 to 3 chapters, are worth 50%. There's also going to be a final project. All right? And you'll work on an electronic portfolio. We don't have to talk about the portfolio at this time. All right? You'll be able to see it. All right. Inside Rankin, as I already mentioned, is your go-to page for finding out everything. Your email, your current attendance record, your current grades, etc. All that stuff should be out there. All right. It's also got the syllabus on it, which is going to have what we're going over for that day, what your assignments will be, etc. All right. I have approached one of the students, and Michael, you know James, who's not in this class. He took this class a year ago. His name is James Wharton, Wharton, and I've asked if he would be open to providing electronic tutorial assistance to any student who might need it. He said he would. Now, I'm going to see him because he is in my afternoon seated class, so I will see him this afternoon. And I asked him this right before we went to break. If he says, yeah, I'll do it, then there's a bunch of paperwork I have to have him fill out. And once he fills it all out, I have to scan it in, then send it off to the St. Louis campus to the person who's in charge of all that stuff. And once they okay it, he can immediately provide tutorial help. All right? So I'll give you more on that once everything has been done. If you have any kind of disability that I have to know about, all right? I mean, you know, in this class, having disabilities isn't going to matter that much. And what I mean is, you get 4 hours to work on a test, technically. All right? And you get those 4 hours from the time you start on the test, 4 hours after that. All right? But other than that, all the work will be due on Sunday. So really, with the disabilities, hopefully at least it won't matter. If you do have some kind of a disability you want me to know about, send me an email. I've had people go through the program. I had a student go through the program. You know, I've had several students with ADD or ADHD. You know, I've had all sorts of stuff. Now, not here, but when I was teaching at a school in Wisconsin, I had a deaf student who went through the program, etc. All right. Career services probably won't be that big of a thing to you right now. All right. But Rankin has a thing, if you go out to the Rankin website, that's called the Rankin Connection. You might want to sign up for that right away. What that will do is anytime there are jobs that come across our people's, the person who runs it, her name is Janie Summers, that comes across her desk, she puts those job postings out there. All right, so it's something you might want to think about, at least taking a look at. Snow days and campus emergencies, I've already mentioned it. So again, we're going to go by this. We're going to assume that classes are going to be held regardless. If for some reason there is a major problem, or if I'm ill or whatever, I will let you know as soon as I possibly can. All right? Okay. So I'm not going to run through all 80 days. That would be silly. All right, but what I'd like to do right now is spend a few minutes. Am I right in assuming you can both see the course schedule on your screen right now?
No, not at the moment. I haven't been able to see your screen that you're sharing.
All right. Let's see. Oops, that's not the one I wanted to hit. So let's see. Let's see if I go in and join. I've already joined. Join now, yeah. All right. Can you now?
For me, it's loading, but it does show that it is split into two screens now.
Okay.
So I'm assuming it's going to work.
All right. Well, otherwise, if it's not, again, I sent you the syllabus before the semester started. So all I want to do is I want to go through weeks 1 and 2 of the syllabus. I'm not going to sit and read to you, believe me. I want to just hit the high points. All right. John, can you see the course schedule right now on your screen?
No, it's just your two names. But I have the syllabus up.
Okay. As long as you got the syllabus up, that's good. All right. And again, as I mentioned earlier, it was before you came, Michael, we tried doing a demo of this and everything worked fine. So of course, you know, when it goes live, it doesn't work fine. But but we're going to get this all to work. The Mr. Groherring, who teaches hardware in the afternoon here, he said he was going to try to come in around 11:30 today, and if something wasn't working like this, he said he would run through it with me and let me see. We like I said, we did a demo before the break and everything worked fine, but I'm not worried about it. We'll get it all to work. Plus, again, everything that I'm doing right now, I'm also taping in Camtasia, and that should be showing everything. That will be out on my YouTube channel, all right, it'll be by the end of the day. As soon as this class ends, I'm going to try to save it and produce it, but I've got to go into my other afternoon seated class. But it will be out there, hopefully by no later than like dinner time tonight. All right, so day 1, we've done the introduction. All right, the student handbook review, I'm not going to go over that. Again, it doesn't pertain that much to an online class. They told us to keep putting in this department handbook review. We don't have a department handbook. Sorry. All right. The work ethic grade sheet, I will tell you that last semester, when I had only seated classes, what I had to do was I had to give what are called work ethic grades, or WEGs, which were something like, if you come every day and you do the work and you're nothing special and nothing not special, you get what's called an ME, meets expectations. If you are constantly walking around, and again, that doesn't pertain to this class, and helping other people, etc., you get an EE, which is exceeds expectations. If you don't come a lot of the time, or you don't turn in homework, you typically get like a DNM, which is a does not meet type of thing. So that's not going to be that big of a thing in here, okay? So the internet usage, that's not going to be a thing in here also, but the GitHub, I want to go through with you in just a couple minutes, all right? So lecture 1, that will be chapter 1 that we'll be going over in just a few minutes. I should mention to you also that I'll go till about 8:55, so that's 50 minutes. We'll take a 10-minute break, and we'll start back up again. Then at 9:05, we'll go again for 50 minutes. You get hopefully what I'm saying. All right, so we will go over chapter 1 today. We will complete chapter 1, and I will talk to you about the homework and labs for chapter 1. We will look at those before the end of the period. Again, please note, these will not be due until midnight, not this Sunday, but a week from Sunday on January 16th. Tomorrow, then, will be much the same, but we won't have all of this preliminary stuff that we've been going over today. So rather than going over today, the stuff we did today, rather than doing that tomorrow, we'll go right into chapter 2. Now, you might look at this and go, okay, and then Friday we'll do chapter 3. It's like, aren't we buzzing through this kind of quick? Yes. Because as you'd probably guess, the more simple stuff is earlier in the book, and the more complex stuff is later in the book. The goal is to go through the entire book. If we don't, then we don't. All right? But it would be in my best interest and in your best interest if we did go through the entire book. All right? So that'll be this week. Then next week, on Monday, when you get ready for class, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create what's called a pretest. You don't turn it in. It's not graded. But it will be very similar to what your actual test will be. And I will give you approximately 2 hours to work on it. During that time, I won't be taping because it doesn't make sense to tape. But I will be online here, so if you've got any questions, you'll be able to immediately ask me. Then at approximately 10 o'clock, we'll spend the next 2 hours, or however long it takes, going over these. And I'll typically show you, I'll start from scratch, and I will do the test right in front of you. All right? Then, let's see, next Tuesday, you'll have your first test. Those are called HOTS, which stands for hands-on test. That will be a graded test, chapters 1 to 3. And especially for that test, you'll probably end up saying to me, this is really similar to the pretest we did yesterday. And it will be. All right? So that then for the rest of that week, so the rest of next week, we'll go through chapter 4. And then we're going to slow it down a little bit. I've actually got days 6 and 7, all right? Really 6 and 7 just dedicated to chapter 4. So like I said, we'll really slow it down. Then finally, for day 8, we'll start going over chapter 5. Then there's no class that following Monday for it's Martin Luther King Day. And then you'll notice on here that I'll always have the homework, and when it's due is off to the side here. All right? Now, have I gone over anything that doesn't make any sense?
Nope, not for me.
Okay. Okay. So like I said, hopefully that all does make sense. I'm going to try something here, and that is I'm going to come back to here and to here And I want to see show participants, show conversation, breakout rooms, more actions, device settings, meeting notes, gallery, apply background effect, turn on live captions. All right. I don't want the whiteboard, so let me get rid of that. Share content. Document. Share document, video, share live video in real time. All right. Now you probably see me right now, but I want to change that. Now you probably really see me. So let's see. All right. Do you still see me, or do you see the syllabus now?
We see you, and then it looks like there's two other windows that are open, but they just show JS.
They just show that's over here. Okay. Oh my goodness. Presenter settings. All right. Let me try sharing it again.
There you go.
Does it say there how do you want to join your Teams meeting?
Yes.
All right. All right. Let me try to change it to something else. Now does it show the syllabus?
Yes, it does.
Okay. I wish I had done that to start with. All right. Sorry about that. And this is going to keep happening since I'm in the office. That's not my phone, but that's my boss's phone. So this kind of thing is going to keep happening throughout the entire semester. I apologize for that. I have already given them a couple of things. I'd like to either be able to broadcast from my home so we wouldn't hear any of this, because I've got a little studio actually set up at my house, or I'd like to be able to go over to our other building and be in an empty room which is pretty much going to be soundproofed. But until they make a decision on that, we got to live with what we have. All right. So let me try one more time here. If I go out to here, do you see Murox? You see the book?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, great. So again, this is our book. If you go out to muroc.com, all right, and I'm saying this, you both may have the book, but there's at least one person in the class who contacted me about using an older version of the book, and they wanted to know if that would work. And I told them, hey, this is the table of contents, so this is what we're going to be covering, all right? So that's up to you. I'm not, if somebody says to me, well, I'm not buying the book, I can't force you to. I wouldn't force you to if I could. But again, if you go down to the free downloads, you can download chapters 2 and 3 as free PDFs. Plus, and all this stuff is available to you. This is all out on the material that I'd given you earlier. All right, you've got all of the book's code. You've got all that right now. All right, so you don't have to worry about that. All right, now one more question. Can you see now the 10 things here that say go over syllabus, etc.? Can you see all that?
Yep.
Okay, because this is what I've been trying to do today. So we went over the syllabus. I went over the online class procedures. I went over the work ethic stuff. This morning, I sent you an email that had this in it. And that is some of the names, titles, and emails for some of the people at Rankin. My information, which you should already have. My boss is Charles Corrigan. He's across the hall teaching right now, and we share the same office. That's his phone you heard ringing. So that's his email. Patrick and Brandon, all right, these are the guys in our business office. Patrick basically handles everything. So if for some reason you get a message that says, hey, there's a problem with your payment or whatever, he's the person that you'll want to contact. Brandon works with him. Brandon is out a lot of the time because he's our recruiter. So he goes to high schools and the like. All right. The reason I'm mentioning this to you is for the last two. This is Ms. Bruggeman. Shannon Bruggeman, who's our Dean of Academic Affairs. She is in the room directly across from me. And if for some reason you think you've got COVID, and I mean, it's not going to affect here because, you can still get the presentation. But if you get COVID and you have to be hospitalized, she is the person you'd want to immediately email me, but also email her. So copy her on there. All right. And then finally, Michelle Riley, and I spelled that wrong, and Michelle is the school's social worker. So, I mean, if something devastating happens in your life or you just need somebody to talk to, she's willing to work with you where you can come in here or she can work with you online. She's a really nice person. She just started here last semester, and I've already referred a few students to her, all right? And they said just what a great person she is. All right, so the next thing that I'm going to do, and you're going to have to tell me if this works or not, is I'm going to guess that probably neither one, probably Michael, you have Git on your system, and probably John, do you want to go by just John?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, John, I suppose you probably don't. Now, if you do, it's fine, but I'm going to go over all the steps anyway because 5 or 6 of the people in the class are new people, and since I'm taping this, I want to show you everything that you should do. I'm assuming that you're both using Windows machines and not a Mac. I have had people who've gone through the program with a Mac, but they found it a lot harder. In fact, Nicholas, who was in my afternoon class, he started with a Mac a year ago, and after a week, he went out and bought himself a Windows machine. Because this program is really gauged that you're using a Windows machine. So if down on the bottom left-hand corner of your screen, you've got this type in here to search, I'm assuming you do. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to type in Control Panel. All right? And I realize it's probably not that easy for you to see, but it's all the stuff that's in my Control Panel. I can't really make this much bigger. But if I go to Control Panel and I go over here, so it's in mine I've got 4 columns. If yours is bigger, you might have more or less columns. But I'm going to go down to Programs and Features right there, and I'm going to double click on that, or I guess just single click, and it shows everything I've got loaded on my machine. All right, I probably have a lot more than you do because I've got a lot of stuff from my other classes, etc. in here. But what I want you to look for, and you can do this too if you want, Michael, because probably you don't have the newest version of Git anymore. If you want to use the one you've got, it's fine. If you want to load the new one, I'm going to go through that right now. But I've got Git loaded right now. I don't want to use this. All right. So I'm going to right mouse click on it and choose uninstall. And it comes back and it says, it's saying, hey, you've got to be a supervisor. I am. So I say boom. And it says, do you want to completely remove Git? Yes, I do. And you'll notice it says it was successfully done and it's not here anymore. Now, I'm going to assume probably you did not have Git on your machine. All right. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to bring up an empty browser window. Do you see Google on my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to do this and then we're going to take a break. So I'm just going to come in here and I'm going to type in Git download and hit enter. And there it is, downloads Git. And I'll show you real quickly. So this, come on, there we go. This is where you should go to, and I'll make it nice and big. Hopefully you can see that too. Can you both read that? https://git-scm.com/downloads?
Yes.
All right, if you go out there, and I'll leave this up here, this is the screen that you're going to see right there. That's the screen that you'll see. All right? So I'll leave that up there for a minute. Like I said, I'm going over a little bit, but as soon as we get done with this, we'll take a break, and then we're just going to continue on from there. All right, so I'm taking for granted you were both able to get there, and the easiest way to do it is to just click the button right here that says Download for Windows. Click that, and it says, what do you want? All right, it says click here to download the latest and greatest. That's the one you want. My guess is you've got a 64-bit machine. Unless your machine is probably 10 years or older, you do. All right, so click right here where it says click here to download. Now, I'm using Chrome as my browser. I'd recommend you use Chrome as well. If you use something else, if you use Internet Explorer or you use Edge or you use Firefox, what I'm about to tell you might be a little different. But on Chrome, in my bottom left-hand corner, it shows me the executable right there. So I'm going to right mouse click on there and say open. And again comes in and it says, hey, are you in charge of this machine? Yes, I am. So I click yes. And now it comes in here with the stuff to go and actually install this. So I'm going to click next. It says, where do you want to install it? I'll just choose the default. I'll click next again. And it says it already exists. And that's because when I uninstalled it, it kept the folder. It says, would I like to install to that folder anyway? Yes. Just accept all the defaults that are in here, but make sure where it says git bash here that this is checked and this is checked. Those are going to be the two most important ones. All right. If you just accept the defaults, you click next. And it says it will create the following structure. Yeah, that's fine. And click next again. I'm not checking that. And it says, what editor do you want? This is a really stupid thing that they put in here because it doesn't matter what editor you choose. So I'm just going to leave it at the default. If you wanted to, you could go back and change it to something else by clicking the down arrow. But you don't have to. Just click next. And choose the let Git decide and click next again. The Git from command line is fine, so click next again. The use bundled open SSH is fine, so click next again. All right. And it says choosing that, so click next again. The checkout window style, that's the one you'd want, so click next again. This use min, this is a legacy thing we don't even have to worry about, so click next again. And finally, the default is fine, so click next again. And it says the credential manager. It says which credential manager. It doesn't really matter, so just click next again. Enable the files. I've had people tell me they've turned it on and off, and it typically doesn't matter. Let's just leave it checked the way it is and click next again. And then finally, when we get here, click install. The whole install process is going to take less time than it just took me to walk through those default options with you. You can see how fast it's going. It's going to depend on your connection. Since you're going from your house, Michael, especially with you, it'll probably go a lot faster than it did when we did this last semester.
Yeah, this is much nicer.
Yeah. And literally that's it. Now, we don't have to view the release notes. We don't have to launch it right now. So I'm just going to click finish. All right. Now that's done, but before I give you your break, if you want to double check and make sure that it was installed, you come back down here into your Windows search box at the bottom. You can again type in Control Panel. You can again click on Programs and Features, and you should see Git in there. So you'll notice mine says, whoop, wrong one. There it is. And it says 1/5/2022, which was today. All right, and it's version 2.34.1, which is the latest and the greatest. Did either one of you have any problems with that?
No issues.
No, I didn't.
Okay, great. All right, so I can close this now. Give me 2 minutes, and then we're going to take our break. All right, so we'll take it at about 8:55. So we've gone through this. We've gone through this. All right. After the break, I'm going to talk to you about GitHub. But before we do that, I'm going to go through and I'm going to reinstall C# on the machine. Even if you've already done it, I'm going to bet you that there's at least one person who's going to be in this class who is not, and that's why I'm going to tape it. Does that make sense to both of you? So I will go over and install C#, which will take a little longer than this. Then we'll talk about GitHub, and we'll install that. And then we'll talk about what a repo is, etc. Then I'm going to quickly, and I mean quickly, go over the PowerPoint slides for Chapter 1. Then we'll actually go over chapter 1. All right, I don't know if we'll get all that done before our next break or not, probably not. But then we'll start writing some programs. And even if you've got problems, don't worry about it. It's all going to work out fine. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back to here now, and let's see. I think there is a pause recording here. I don't want to stop recording. So you know what? I'm just going to leave it on during the break. All right, so you might see different things because I'm going to go out and double check some windows, etc. It's 8:55. Let's plan on starting back up at 9:05. Okay?
Sounds good.
All right, see you then. So again, it says, you are about to uninstall, click OK to continue. Now, let's see. So it's verifying, it's going to go through and do the uninstall. Hopefully, since there's not a lot of people on this machine right now, it won't take long. I know that when I've done this in classes before, it can take up to 5 minutes. Now, if it appears to really be taking a long, long time, then I'll go on and do something else and let this work in the background. But it looks... Hopefully it's already halfway done. And while that's happening, I'm going to come in here and again into Google, I'm just going to type in Visual Studio 2022. Notice I've already got it. Download for Windows 10. And it has, visualstudio.com downloads. That's where I'd go to. That's where I'm going to go to. Now, there are different versions of this. The difference between community, professional, and enterprise, the biggest difference is community's free. All right? Professional and enterprise both offer some features and some functionality that the community doesn't. Most of that stuff that's offered in the professional and the enterprise are things like being able to create customized reports and be able to support multiple users at one time, etc., which doesn't really even matter to us one way or the other. So we don't have to be concerned with it at all. Now, let's see. Yeah, it's still going, so I'm going to let it spin before I go and start to do the reinstall. So while we're waiting, because I don't want to waste my time or yours, I'd like you to please go out to github.com. All right, yours might not look a lot like mine. Let me close that. So I've got a bunch of stuff in here, and don't worry about what mine all says. But again, so I want you to go there. And again, when you do this, you don't need this. Just type in github.com. That should get you there. All right. So again, yours will look a lot different. In fact, yours will probably look... The problem is I can log out right now, but when I log out and log back in again, for some reason on this machine, it doesn't always accept my password, even though it's correct. But what I'd like you to do is to go through the process and sign up for a brand new account. Now, you're saying, okay, that's fine and dandy, but you're not showing us what to do. Now, I gave you these before, and this is one of the things that I've shown in the past. There's a gentleman who's got a bunch of classes, and they're not free, but he's really good. His name is Colt Steele. You can see it up there, hopefully, on the screen. And if you go out to YouTube and you type in Colt Steele Git, you'll get his Git presentation, which is Learn Git in 15 minutes. But I'd recommend starting with his other one.
New intro. And then change the intro. And I would do that over and over and end up with like 20 versions.
Okay,
and it
where are
kind
you,
of works
Colt?
when it's one file and one person, but it would be impossible on a large project like this one.
All right. So there's
Everyone,
that one, but I'd recommend that instead you start with Colt Steele GitHub.
Difficult to learn.
Why that keeps starting up again, I don't know. All right. And if you go out there, again, both of these presentations are 15 to 20 minutes long. But he will explain everything as far as signing up for an account. Again, for whatever reason, when I've tried to do this again, and I've already got a GitHub account, and when I try to go out and sign up for another one, even using a different email address, it screws up the GitHub account that I have. That's why rather than me showing you the steps, I'll have you watch those videos. And if you have questions when you're doing that, all right, then you'll let me know. Okay? Now, we're going to pretend for a second that you have signed up for a GitHub account. All right, so even if you haven't already, so let me close both these because I got a lot of stuff open here. All right, close that. And all right. So I'm just going to go out to github.com. And again, yours will look more like this once you've got an account, but you won't have this stuff and you won't have anything created yet. All right. But what you will be able to do under your GitHub is you should be able to go out to github.com/jpscottrankin. And that's got all of my stuff in it, all my repositories, etc. And you'll notice this is the one that you'll have to download. How do you do that? After you get into this, you will click on it, and then you'll click on the word code, and then you'll click on download zip. I'm not going to do that because I've already got a bunch of versions of it. But it'll download it into your downloads folder that as a zip file, then you'll just unzip it. Now, I went through that quickly, but if you try doing it and you have any questions, please, by all means, feel free to email me because I'll be more than happy to work with you on this. All right, I want to see if this is finished now. All right, it looks like it's totally been uninstalled, but I want to double check. So I'm going to go back to Control Panel, Programs and Features, and make sure I don't have Visual Studio there anymore. And you can see it's gone. It was right here. So I'm going to go back to exactly where I told you to go to just a few minutes ago, and that is this downloads page. This is visualstudio.com. I'm sorry, let me put it up there just in case you need it. All right, and I will make this. There we go. So it's, again, you don't need the HTTPS. Visualstudio.com, try it again, visualstudio.microsoft.com/downloads. All right, I'll make it a little bit smaller here so it all fits on one screen. Okay, almost. Jeez Louise. So there's where you have to go, and you probably don't need the slash at the end either. But that gets you here. Once you get here, again, you want to click the free download, make sure it's community, free download. And it's going to come back, and again, you can see it came in here, and it's got the setup right here. And I'm going to right mouse click on it again and choose open. All right. Very similar to the type of stuff we went through earlier, but once we actually get through and start doing the download, of course, it'll look a lot different. It says before you get started, we need to set up a few things so we can configure your installation. So I'm going to click continue. All right. And it says get the installer ready. Yours may not be installed already, but since I've already installed the package, of course, mine is. Now, there's a lot of stuff in here, and there's a lot of stuff in here that we don't need. So I'm going to only concentrate on the stuff that I would like you to install. Now, we may or may not, at the very end of the class, have time to look at ASP.NET web development. I'm going to assume we're going to have maybe a period or two to look at that, so I'm going to check that. Don't check Azure, don't check Python, don't check Node. All right, so I'm working my way down here. All right, we don't need most of this stuff, to be honest with you. So we do want the .NET desktop development. That's the biggest one that we need to make sure is checked. We're not doing mobile development in this class. We're not doing C++, so we don't need those. The Universal Windows Platform, you probably don't need it, but I'm going to check that anyway. All right. And then I'm going to come down to here under gaming. Now, if you decide you want to go and do gaming, you can do that. I'm not going to do any of this stuff, but I am going to come down to where it says data storage and processing. Connect, develop, and test data solutions with SQL Server. And I'm going to check that. So you can see what I've added here. The core editor, ASP.NET and web development, .NET desktop development, Universal Windows Platform development, and data storage. Now this is not small. Notice it says total space required 19.85 gig. So this is going to take a while to install. But one last time, I checked the following. ASP.NET and web development, .NET desktop development, Universal Windows Platform development. We probably won't need that one, but I am anyway. And the data storage and processing. All right. Once you've got all that, it says install while downloading. Okay. I'm just going to click install. And like I said, this is going to take a while. I know that it is. Even with a connection here, even with not a lot of people on here. So I'll come back to that. All right. So we have now gone over number 1, number 2, and number 3. I told you a little bit about GitHub, and I told you how you can unzip the repo. All right. So we've got those. So next, I'm going to jump into our book, and I'm going to go over the PowerPoint slides for Chapter 1. Now, it's going to be a little difficult because Chapter 1 is going to talk all about Visual Studio. And since I am reinstalling it, some of the stuff I'm just going to go through kind of quickly. All right? So let me grab that. Try that again. Here we go. Now, my question to you is, can you both see the PowerPoint slide up on the screen? Chapter 1, how to get started with Visual Studio.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Looks like I've turned on closed captioning too, which I didn't really want to do, but I'm going to leave it alone. So I'm going to go on. Now, Michael will tell you from the class last semester, I never went over a PowerPoint. All right. I'm not going to spend much time on this, but this is just meant to further amplify what we're going through and what we're going over, all right, in the actual book once we get to bringing up the book itself. So, I don't want to read to you, but it's basically how to use Visual Studio, period. All right. They'll also talk about desktop applications and web apps. We're going to be working almost solely in here with desktop applications. All right. So, again, you can read those at your leisure. You've got this stuff. All right. By the end of the day today, hopefully, we'll have built an application that looks sort of similar to this. Not with every bell and whistle that it has on there, but with most of the stuff that it has. All right. So, that's a desktop application. More so, it's a desktop GUI or graphical user interface application. You're going to learn how to build both graphical applications and what are called console applications, which is just basically text-based. We're going to look at both, and we'll work with both for a bit, and then as we get going, probably by next week or so, we'll be doing almost solely GUI applications like this. All right? These are the 3 platforms. We're going to be using Windows Forms. That's the only one you have to worry about. All right. Again, if we have time, we'll look at ASP.NET Web Forms at the end of the semester. The book, even though the book has got a 2020 publishing date on it, uses 2019. So some of the stuff that we do, because I'm having you load the latest and greatest, 2022 may look a little bit different. All right? But the differences will be minimal. And oftentimes there'll be no differences whatsoever. You can work with different programming languages in here. We are exclusively going to be working with C#. If you're a hardware head, this is kind of what's going and taking place underneath the screen, underneath the hood, so to speak. So when you look at .NET applications, that's us. When you look at the operating system and the hardware, that's the computer. And the .NET framework, which is what we're loading with Visual Studio, sits in between the two. And if you understand that, there's really not much more you need to worry about. This is what our IDE is going to look like. IDE is an acronym that stands for Integrated Development Environment. Visual Studio Community 2022 is going to be our IDE, or our Integrated Development Environment. Now, when you bring yours up and we create our first program, it may not look like this. And if it doesn't, I'll show you how to get it to look like this by just literally choosing a few of the options that are up here. All right? It's a very intuitive editor. And even though Michael has had a class with me before, in previous years, I probably slammed Microsoft as much as anybody. But I got to get credit where it's due, and that is that Visual Studio is a very intuitive IDE, and it's pretty easy to use. And what we used the first semester, Visual Studio Code, which is kind of a scaled-down version of this, is also a fairly intuitive IDE. All right, so that'll be our IDE. What they're showing you is a lot of this stuff is going to happen underneath the hood. And if you say, I don't get any of that stuff, you don't have to. Because once we run a program, this stuff is going to happen for you literally automatically. All right, by you clicking a couple buttons. All right, your start window will look similar to this, not identical, but similar. When you bring yours up for the first time, you won't see this here because this shows all of the projects you've already created, or as many as they can fit on the screen here. If you don't have any projects yet, it won't show anything. But we'll go through this and what it means in just a couple minutes. All right? Okay. When you end up saving things, there are going to be a lot of different files that are going to be saved. Good, bad, or indifferent, that's just the way that it is. I'm going to talk to you about what a lot of them are. A lot of them are system files, and I'll say to you, don't touch those. And the reason I say that is because they are system files, files used by the system, and if you go in and manipulate them, you can break your program. All right. So the key takeaway from this slide right here is what's the difference between a project and a solution. We're going to make a solution together in just a few minutes that's called payroll. And then underneath that, we're going to create a bunch of projects. We're going to create payroll 01, payroll 02, and we're going to create about a half dozen of them. So a solution is a file that ends with .sln, and that basically holds everything that you're creating for your current session, whatever you want to call it. And a solution can hold one or more projects. When I first started teaching this, I had students create a different solution for each project they worked on. But then after a while, it was like, geez, a lot of these are very similar to one another. So why don't I just create a solution that's just called payroll, for example? Now, what I'm going to suggest is that when you go through this, you create a solution. Once we get going, once you start working on your homework and your labs and your tests, that you're going to create one solution called homework, one solution called labs, and one solution called tests. Now, you probably won't have to because they very well may be created for you already. We'll look at that in a bit. But if they're not, then you'll want to do that. And if you say, I don't know how, I'll walk through it with you. All right. There's different ways of opening a project. They're showing one of them here. And since we don't have a project yet, it doesn't pay to go through that. All right. Technically, what you can do in here is, for instance, notice this says button. If I click where it says button and I drag it out here, it's going to make a button like this. So that's one way that I can do it. Or I can double click on where it says button and it'll also make a button. But if I double click on something, it puts it way up in the upper left-hand corner. So if I want to be able to move it where I want it to be, where it starts, I just literally hold down on the left mouse button, drag it over here. This is my form designer window, and drop it. And again, if I'm going too fast or it doesn't make sense, when we make a project or two together, you'll be like, oh, that's it? Yeah. All right. Now, when you do this, you get two files that get created. All right. This right here is going to be a file that by default, I believe it's called like form1.cs. CS for C#, again, the language we're using. All right. But there will also be a file that will have code in it. And if you go, I don't know what that is, we're going to write our first programs together. All right. So it really shouldn't be anything that throws you for a loop or anything. All right. When I showed you this over here, this is called our toolbox. This is our form designer right here. It's not showing right now, but down here is where we put, it's called our error window. Up here is our solution explorer, and down here is our properties window. So let's say that you bring this up and you don't see any toolbox, you don't see any solution explorer, you don't see any properties window. Then all you do is you click up on view here, and there'll be options for toolbox. There'll be another view option for solution explorer. There'll be another view option for properties window. If you don't want them to be cluttering up your screen, you can just click the X here, and the X here, and the X here, and they'll all disappear. And to bring them back again, you will again just do a view with toolbox, or a view with solution explorer, or a view with properties. Okay? You'll also be able to flip back and forth in here. There's different ways of doing it. I think you can hit your F2 key from here and it'll put you into the code window. But I always just right mouse click on an empty spot on the form and it'll say view code. And I click that and it brings me to here. And if you say, I won't remember that after you've done it a few times, yeah, you will. It's really and truly not difficult to do. All right. So the Solution Explorer has all the different files you have in the program, even including the ones that I said you shouldn't touch. All right. And we'll look at all those in just a bit. All right. They explain here what all these are. I don't want to throw too much at you. I probably am anyway, even though I'm not trying to. All right. But that said, it'll make, I think, a lot of sense once we really go in and take a look at everything. All right. So it says when you create a new application, Visual Studio will create a bunch of stuff for you automatically. And it'll create different stuff depending on whether or not we create a console application, which is what we're going to do first, or we create a GUI application, also known as a Windows Form application. GUI, again, is an acronym for Graphical User Interface. All right. The stuff on your screen is what's called dockable, which means if I decided I want my properties window to be on this side, I can click on here on this blue bar, hold down, and drag it over if I want to. I'm going to recommend that you don't do that and you leave things where they are, because all of the screenshots that are in our book will show them where they are by default. But I will also show you, if you move them around, how you can have them snap back into place again. All right? So they show a little bit of that in here about the docking. All right? And we'll go over the reset window in just a bit. This project properties window says to change the target framework, we should never have to touch this, because by default, it should have the highest one, the latest and greatest, that's what we want. So we should never have to touch this. All right. Don't worry about this just because of the fact I believe that the newest version of C# is C# 11.0, I believe. And it'll already upgrade this for us. It's already been done. All right. This is a GUI application that they create. Muroc does a lot of stuff with, using their own logo, etc. We're not going to look at that right now, but we will take a look at it. All right. To run a project, it really and truly isn't difficult. I want to go back a little bit here. If you see up here, there's this little arrow that points to the right, and it's green. When you click on it, it literally runs the project for you. And when you run the project, if you have an error, it'll show you down in your error window down here. And there'll be a bunch of stuff up here. You don't have to worry about it because it's some diagnostics, some other stuff that just runs for you automatically. And we're going to run through all that stuff in just a bit. All right? So we'll go through all of this. And those are all the slides for Chapter 1. Now, I'm going to look, but my guess is it still isn't done loading, but I'm going to look anyway. And you can see where it is. All right? So it looks like it's, well, I'm not sure if this is done or not. Can I ask, with both of you, Michael, you had already downloaded it when we did it as a class, correct? Michael?
Sorry about that. Yeah, I do have it on my laptop, but I am currently installing it on my home PC as well.
Okay, no problem. John, are you going through the process, or had you already installed it?
I already installed it.
You already installed it. Okay, so I'm doing this, like I said, more for the benefit because my guess is there'll be at least 1 or 2 people in here that have not installed it yet. All right, so that's good. All right. So jumping back into my notes, my cheat sheet, so to speak, we've now done the first 6 things. All right. So I will go over Chapter 1, but before I do, I want to talk about the homework and the labs. Then we'll go over Chapter 1 with Visual Studio up and running. We'll take our next break, and then we'll actually attempt to come in here and write a few of these programs. All right. So this is good. I'm done. So it says sign in, no account, create one. If you get that, I just suggest you do the not now, maybe later. You can choose your own theme. I just choose the light one because it's the one that resonates the best when I'm taping. If you like dark, by all means, do the dark. All right, so it says they're preparing it. Again, you probably have already gone through this before. Okay, and there it is. So it's up and running. I'm going to stop it. And I'm going to start it back up again. So I'm going to come down here, and I'm going to type in right here, Visual Studio. And notice I've got Visual Studio Code, but I've also got Visual Studio 2022. You should have Visual Studio 2022. You should also have the installer. Now, if you don't worry about it. But if you omitted downloading one of the things I showed you before, or you decided you didn't want one of them, or you want to go back later and add one, you can bring up the installer and just do a partial install. All right? But I'm going to go, and under my Visual Studio, I can open it here, but I've also gone and pinned it to my taskbar down here. So there it is. In fact, let me get rid of this. So I guess I've got it in there twice. There it is. So I'm starting up Visual Studio for the first time here, and this is what I see. If you have not started up Visual Studio, please do so. All right. Now, there's a bunch of stuff that we can do in here. I don't want to overwhelm you on day one, so I'm going to show you this the easiest way possible. All right. So yours may be empty. You'll notice I've already created a bunch of applications. So if you look in here, I've already got a bunch of stuff in here. All right. Okay. So what I'd like you to do is to go down to the bottom here and choose Create New Project right there. as I'm going through this, because again, I can't see your machines, I'm taking for granted that if you have a problem with this, you're going to let me know. All right? And you'll notice yours may not look like mine up here, but what we want to do real quickly, because I want to get you up and running. I want to get you where you've actually got a project up there, both a console application and a graphical application. Now, we won't get both of them done before our next break, but we should get the first one done. If yours doesn't look like this, don't worry about it. If yours looks totally different, then come up here if you want to and type in console. And it'll show you the different console applications that we can add. All right? Again, I'm going to just keep going, and I'm going to take for granted that when I tell you to do something, it's making sense and you're able to replicate it. And if you have a problem, you're going to ask. All right? I'd like you to choose the console app.NET framework. Hopefully you see that. We want the one for C#. Notice there's two of them here that say console app.NET framework. We want the one for C#. All right, so I'm going to click on that. And once I've clicked on that, I'm going to click next. All right. Now, this is for what we've done so far. This is the most important thing we've seen. All right. We're going to go and we're going to create a new project and we're going to create a new solution. All right. And I'm going to have you change where you put this unless you want to put it there. We're going to create a new project. Our first project is going to be called Payroll 01. Go ahead and put that in. Do not hit create. Do not hit anything. Just type in Payroll 01. Historically, when you create projects, they start with a capital letter. And if you have two words, so if I was going to call this payroll application, the P in payroll and the A in application would both be capitalized, and you run the words together. All right? Now, you'll notice that when I did this, it automatically made a solution of the same name. Because it thinks, by default, Visual Studio thinks that you want your project name and your solution name to be the same. I don't want that to be the case. So I'm going to come down here, and I'm just going to call this Payroll. Not Payroll 01, just Payroll. Now, do not hit Create yet. We're going to make one more change. So your project name should be Payroll 01. Your solution name should be Payroll. The last thing I want to change is, by default, it puts it into this folder, source repos folder. I want to just have this, create this, and put it on my desktop. If you want to keep the default one, that's your call. But I want it to be my desktop. So I'm going to click over here where it says Browse, and I'm going to choose my desktop right there. And once I chose my desktop, I'm going to click Select Folder. And you can see how it changed to, for me at least, it's C:\users /JP Scott /desktop /. Yours, of course, will be different. Again, I'm going to recommend that you save this right to your desktop. If you decide later you don't want to, you can save future projects someplace else. All right? So I've got my project name as Payroll 01. No blank spaces in project names or solution names. No special characters like commas or apostrophes. Years ago, when I was teaching this class, we created a program, and it was for a mythical auto company called Joe's Automotive. And many of the students, when they created their project name, called it Joe's, JOE''S space automotive. They didn't have any problem with it until one day it just stopped working. And it's because those system files don't like special characters and they don't like blank spaces. All right, end of sermon. So, Payroll 01, no spaces, capital P, project name. Location is my desktop, and the solution name is just Payroll. Now, don't check this. It says place it in the same directory. Just leave that alone. And your framework should already be set. You'll notice you don't have a lot of choice. You've got 4.7.2 and 4.8. Now, I could up it to 4.8, but this should be more than fine for everything we do in here. So I'm just going, now I'll click Create. And you may or may not have noticed, but I now have a folder here named Payroll. And it's creating the project for me. And there it is. I'm going to make my screen bigger, and I'm doing that. It came up like this. I'm holding down on the Control key, and I am using my mouse wheel to move it. Now it says here, sign in to Visual Studio. Sign in, no account, create one, account options. I'm just going to close that, and hopefully it won't ask me. All right, so I just made it bigger. All right, I'm going to ask you this right now. Did this work for both of you?
Yep, I'm good to go.
All right, John?
Yeah, I'm good to go.
Okay. All right. So, just so you know, the files that are right here, those are libraries that C# has, all right? And by and large, we won't need most of them, but for now, we'll just leave it in there, okay? All right, we'll leave them in there. Now, so these using files, these allow us to bring in system resources for us to use. What we will be working in is what's called a namespace. It's kind of like our area that we're working with. And notice it's called Payroll 01. So our namespace is the same thing as what we saved our project as. All right? Now, I'm not going to go into this internal class program, etc. We could, but I just don't want to confuse you. We're going to write our code for now inside of static void main. Main, for lack of a better word, is our point of origin. It's where the program starts executing. Okay? We're going to literally come in here. I'm going to hit enter, and we're going to write one line of code, save it, and run it to make sure it all works. So right now, I'm going to type in system.console.writeLine, and you can see there is what's called Intellisense here. So if I click tab, it'll accept that for me. And I'm going to put in here in double quotes, hello C#, just that. And on the end, put in a semicolon, just like that. That's our first program. Now, it's not doing much, but ideally, when we run this in a minute, you're going to see on your screen, hello C#. The reason I'm showing you this is I'm going to show you a shortcut for this in just a moment. So if you put all that in, get used to always, before you run your program, which again is going to be clicking that green arrow, before you do that, do a file and choose Save All. When you do the Save All, it not only saves this file, but it also saves any system files that you might have gone in here and you might have changed. All right? So with all that said, I'm taking for granted you did the file save all. Click this green arrow right here that says Start. And down on the bottom, you're going to see a bunch of stuff happening, and you're going to see a black window come up. And what did it do? Well, it just beeped at us. All right? Believe it or not, it worked. All right, but we've got to tell it that we want it to stop right there. I'm surprised it did that, but it did. So I'm going to try doing this. System.console.readline and put nothing in there. Now, let me run it first and make sure it works. And you can see now, if you look, there's your hello C#. All right? So, if your screen just flashed and went back, then add this second line in here. And I'm going to explain what all of these mean in just a second. But I'd like you to put in those two lines, save it, click the green arrow to run it, and verify that it says hello C# and that your cursor, so in other words, verify that when you run it, it looks like this. And if it does, congrats, you just done your first program. Now, Sure as heck doesn't do much, but that's okay. Did it work for you?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. John, I don't know if your mic is way down or not. I can hear you, but it's really, really soft. All right.
Better?
Okay, so I'm going to close this by just clicking the X. Now, nothing wrong with doing it this way, but I want to show you a shortcut right now where we don't have to use this anymore. Notice if I get rid of this, it's going to give me an error. I'm going to get errors on both lines because it doesn't understand what I'm doing. So, do you notice up here how all of these are gray? Can you see that? All right.
Yep.
Notice if I put my mouse, I get this light bulb, but if I put my mouse over the light bulb, it says, hey, you've got a lot of unused files right there. Do you want me to get rid of them? So if I click remove, they're gone. All right, but I still have my error because I have to bring in another using statement. So I'm going to type in that right now. Using static system.console. Like that. And notice when I did that and added that line, those errors went away, and I no longer have to say system.console or or console or whatever. So in the first few programs that we're going to do here, which are going to be very simplistic, I'd recommend that you leave and put that in here, and then we don't need system.console.writeLine or system.console.readLine. All right? So I'm taking for granted we've got that done. So let's actually write a program that does something. It's not going to do a lot, but it's going to do something. We're going to write this, and then we're going to add to it. But we're just going to get it working very simplistically, and then we'll be almost ready for another break. All right, so I'm going to come in here and I'm going to get rid of these two lines. All right, now I'm going to show you something. Please don't type this. Last semester, Mr. McLean here was in the AWD1100 class, and he learned a different programming language, that being JavaScript. And when we type JavaScript in, we would type in var followed by something, or we would type in let followed by something. Well, this doesn't even recognize the word let, and the word var in here means something totally different than what it means in JavaScript. So I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but we're going to declare what are called some variables in here. And they're just variables are just containers that hold stuff. So we're going to come in here and we're going to create about 5 or 6 variables. So I'm going to come in here and type in string, use a lowercase s, and I'm going to type in first name equal, put your first name in there in double quotes, put mine in there, put Spider-Man's in there, it doesn't matter. And then we're going to do another one with last name. And we'll put in, you'll put in your last name. And again, you can put in, you can make them mythical, you can put in anything you want in there, it doesn't matter. And then we're going to make a couple more. The next one we're going to put in here is going to be a double. I'll explain what all this stuff means in a little bit. We're going to say double hours equal 0.0, double rate equals 0.0, double gross equals 0.0. In fact, let's do this. Let's give these values. Let's assume that we worked 40 hours this week, and let's assume we make $25 an hour. You can put any numbers in there you want. It really and truly doesn't matter. So we're going to say double gross equals hours times rate. All right, and then we're going to say right line gross pay, and I'm going to explain all this stuff, so don't let it bother you. Gross. All right. Now, let me make sure I didn't break anything, okay? So I'm going to save this and run it. And it should say, whoops, I forgot my read line, sorry. So read line. All right, and let me run it. And it should say gross pay 1,000, and it does. All right, so that's our first program that actually, for lack of better words, did something. All right, so I'm going to give you a second to type all of this in, and then I want to go over it line by line. Now this is a finicky editor, so you'll notice that if I come in here and I do that and I move this over like that and I hit enter, now it took it, but by default it'll go in and it'll try to format it itself. So I have to wait if you want to be really, pretty about this, aesthetically pleasing, whatever you want to call it. All right. So type in those 6 or 7 lines, save it, hit your green button over here, and make sure it says gross pay 1,000. Have you both had a chance to do that?
Yes.
Okay. And John?
Yeah, I'm almost done with it.
All right, so let's take it from the top. Again, for now, think of the word static as meaning there's only one of them. So everything that we create in this program shares the same main. Main, again, is our point of entry. Main, there's no statement at the bottom of the screen here that says return something. Main doesn't return anything, so it is void of a return. It's also possible when you run a program, we're not going to do this, that you can pass things in. And you pass them in as what's called a string array. So it's an array, which is what this means. We don't talk about that for quite a bit, so don't worry about it. Of strings, and it's called args. And if you say, do I need to know any of that? Not a bit. I'm just trying to be complete here. So here we've got a string variable. Here we've got a string variable. Here's a double. Here's a double. Here's a double. What's the difference? Strings are characters. So if I had put in here, I'm going to change this back in just a second. That's not the number 40. That is the string 40.0 that has no numerical value to it. Anything that you put within double quotes by default has no numerical value. All right. So there's the first name and there's the last name. You'll notice that they're both green underneath. That's a warning. And it's telling me I've defined those, but I'm not using them anyplace. We're going to use them after the break. So we'll just leave them there. Then you'll notice that hours and rate and gross are all of type double. A double is a numeric variable which can hold a decimal place. Doesn't have to, but it can. All right? There's other types, and we're going to look at them in just a bit. But hours is the number of hours we worked, so I just set it to 40. Rate is our hourly rate, so I set it to 25. And then gross, I set equal to hours, which is 40, times rate, which is 25. It did the math, and it put 1,000 in gross. Then we printed it out. All right? I'm not trying to go over this too fast or too slow, but hopefully what we just did made at least a little bit of sense to you. All right? So I'm going to do this. I'm going to do a file. I'm going to do a save all. All right? And then it might not make any sense right now, but it'll make sense after the break. And that is, I'm going to grab everything that's in here and I'm going to copy it to the clipboard because we're going to make a copy of this in just a minute. But I just want to copy this stuff. So I highlighted it all, right mouse clicked, and chose copy. You can also highlight all of it and do a Control-C. You can do a file or an edit copy. There's a bunch of ways you can do this. It's no big thing one way or the other. All right? So let's see. Let me check on here. I think what we'll do is before we take our break, we're just going to make a copy of this, so I'll be able to show you this. Now, you'll notice if you look in here, and I can't make this part of the window any bigger, but if you look on yours, you see where it says Solution Payroll, one of one project. Then underneath it, you've got a Payroll 01. The file we're working with right here is program.cs. These other files is properties file, the reference file, and the app.config. There's the app config, for example, and I don't even want that open. Those are all system files. You should never again write to those. All right? But what I want to do is I want to make a copy of my payroll. There's different ways of doing this, but I want to show you what I consider to be the correct way of doing it. All right? And we'll do this, and then we're taking another break. I want you to take your mouse and single click on where it says Solution Payroll, one of one. And again, if you're having any problems or it doesn't make sense, please stop and ask me. So I single left mouse clicked on here, on where it says Solution Payroll. Now I'm going to right mouse click on there. Oh, hold on, I got somebody waiting to get in here. All right. All right, good morning, Jeremiah. Hopefully that you're going to be able to see what we're doing in here or see it very shortly. All right, we've already gone through. We've been going since 8 o'clock, so we've gone for a while. And I've taped everything that we've done so far, just so you know. All right, so I'm going to right mouse click on here where it says Solution Payroll. Try it one more time. Click on it, then right mouse click and go to Add, and you want New Project. If you have any problems with that, you got to tell me. Just go Add. What's that?
Where do we find our Explorer? Because mine's not on my.
Oh, okay, good point. Thank you. If your Explorer isn't showing here, go to View and go down to Solution Explorer. It's got to be here someplace. There it is. Fourth one down. Yeah, in fact, I'll remove all these and then add them back. So there's my Solution Explorer. I'm getting rid of all this stuff. All right. And now I'm going to do a view and tell it to bring back the Solution Explorer. And there it is. And I'm going to do another view and I'm going to bring back the properties window, which is down right near the bottom. So now I've got them back. Did that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay. So again, click on here, then right mouse click on it. Choose Add, New Project, like that. And it's going to run through the same stuff we just did. Now, I don't want console app here. I'm going to come up here and type in console again. You want to make sure you're choosing the console app.NET framework, this one. There are some differences. You can get the regular console app to work. This is much more streamlined, and it's the way that you should be doing things. So choose console app.NET framework. Make sure you choose the C# one. Choose next. Now we're going to type in here payroll 02. Notice you don't set the location now because it's already been set. It's being told to save it under payroll that's on our desktop. So just type in payroll 02, click create. All right. Looks very similar to the last one. The only thing that's different is now it says payroll 02. And I'm going to come down here and I pasted back in all that code we had before. All right. The reason it's giving me that error is I've got to come up to the top now and type in that using static system.console like I did before. And now those errors have gone away. So we now have an exact replica of what we were doing. All right, so we've got two copies. And you'll notice there's payroll 1 and there's payroll 2. It still thinks, the system still thinks our active project is payroll 01. Even though we added 02, it still thinks that 01 is our active project. I'm going to show you how you can fix that after the break. So, Jeremiah, if you can hang on for a minute, I'll try to get you back up to speed. And what I'm going to do here quickly is I'm going to come back out here. And again, I'm going to start in. So your break starts right now. I will see you at 10:11. So resume. All right. Honesty, I'm just going to assume you're not going to cheat. This is the grade scale. Your lowest test grade will typically be dropped. Any questions, go out to Inside Rankin. Our go-to guy here for any questions you have is Patrick Glynn. You may have worked with Patrick already. He's the admissions counselor. Here's his email address, and here's his phone number. All right, I sent you guys all an email this morning that looked like this, and it's got his information and Brandon Fan, who works with him. Brandon is out of the office a lot because he does a lot of recruiting. So that's my information. That's my boss's information. There's Patrick and Brandon's information. Ms. Bruggeman is the person who sits right across from me. She's our Dean of Academic Affairs. That's her information. If you get COVID and you're going to be hospitalized, please try to have either you or someone else email me and Ms. Bruggeman so that we know that we can keep a record of that. We've also got a school social worker. That's not on the email. I forgot to add that. That's Michelle A. Riley. It looks like Ma Riley. And she'll work with you if you're having problems, personal, professional, or whatever. She is a licensed social worker. All right. So we went over that. And then I went over the first, this is what we're doing today. That's all the stuff that we've done. And we've gone over chapter 1, so I'm not going to do that again, though. But your assignment is the chapter 1 written tests and labs, and it's due notice a week from Sunday. Tomorrow we'll do the same with chapter 2, Friday with chapter 3. Then next week we'll go through the other stuff. And don't worry about it because we'll be talking about this again at the end of class. All right, so what I did with all of you is we went over chapter 1, but we went over just the PowerPoints. All right, what I'd like to do, and I know where you guys are, but I want to get Jeremiah caught up to where the rest of you are, and that is you don't have what I'm about to show you. Am I right in assuming you can all see on your screen right now? It says contents. Am I right? Can somebody answer?
Yes, I see it right now.
Okay. So this is the table of contents for our book. All right? So if I back up a little bit, it's not in color, but there's the book. All right? Here is the abridged table of contents. And again, the goal is to go through the entire book. If we don't get through all of it, we don't get through all of it. If I have to skip anything, it'd be some of the stuff that's down in the bottom here. But at a minimum, we'll get through 16 chapters. And ideally, maybe if we skip 17 and 18, 19 through 22. All right? Then after that comes the actual unabridged table of contents where they break it down. I'm not going to go over any of this. You can read that on your own if you have the desire. But I'm going to start here, and even though it looks like we're backing up, I'm going to go through section 1, all right? And I'm going to have the chance to go through and talk about what we've done already. Now, Jeremiah, for you, and again, I don't mean to pick on you, but since you started a little late today, if you have not, we downloaded, I had you download 2 things today. All right. If you have not already downloaded Visual Studio Community Edition 2022, just go out and Google Visual Studio 2022 download for Windows. And it'll bring you to visualstudio.microsoft.com/downloads and click on there. This is also in the tape. And then you want to go to the free download. All that stuff is in the tape. I don't have time to go back through it right now. All right. But I downloaded that for everybody. Then you also want to come in and do a download of a product called Git. All right, and you can do the Git for Windows, that's fine. And if you click on here, it's git-scm, which stands for sourcecontrolmanager.com. And if you click on there, and again, this is all in the earlier tape, it's going to bring you here. You click on this, you open up the executable, and you accept basically every default option. And then you'll have Git. All right, after we did that, went to download GitHub. They're two different products. All right, you don't need the GitHub desktop. Just go out to github.com. Yours won't look anything like this. But there'll be a thing up here that'll say sign up for a free account. When you guys do this, and I should have mentioned this earlier, especially for you, John, but I like it if you set up your account. Michael, I know yours isn't like this, and it's okay. But, I mean, I've had people call it all sorts of stuff. I like it, for example, mine is JP Scott Rankin. What is that? It's my first initial, my middle initial, my last initial, or my last name, Rankin. So, John, for yours, I don't know what your middle initial is. It doesn't matter. I'm going to assume for a second it's A. So I would like you to type in yours as J.A. Stark Rankin. Now, if you've already created it, you didn't call it that, it's okay. All right, you're going to have to let me know what you called it, but it's okay. All right, and Jeremiah, I don't even remember what your last name is, but let's just say it's Smith. I know it's not. So if you were Jeremiah A. Smith, you would type in J.A. Smith Rankin. That would be the name. All right, I'm going to just leave it at that. Then we went over chapter 1 while we were downloading Visual Studio 2022. And make sure on that you download the free one, which is the community version. And then we went in and actually opened it up and started writing some stuff. So, whoops. Again, there's my boss's phone, so sorry about that in advance. It goes to email after like 6 rings. So I can't pick it up and slam it down again, even though I'd like to. All right. So I'm going to go back to here, and I'm going to start going over chapter 1. Section 1 of the book is chapters 1, 2, and 3. We're going to go over those for the rest of this week. Then on Monday of next week, I'm going to give you what I call a pretest. I'll give you 2 hours to work on it. It's going to be very similar to the first test that you write. And after those 2 hours, I'm going to go and build it for you from scratch. All right? So it'll be out there. All right? Then Tuesday of next week, you'll actually have a test on chapters 1, 2, and 3. The test will be for you to write a couple programs. It won't be true or false. It won't be multiple choice. It won't be fill in the blank. We have written tests, but the other tests you're going to take, the HOTS, are hands-on tests. They're going to be totally application-oriented. So, as it says here, Chapter 1 introduces us to the .NET environment. Chapter 2 shows you how to use Visual Studio to design a form. And Chapter 3 shows you how to enter and edit code. It goes into a little bit more about how the form works. All right? So, we went over, Jeremiah, just so you know, we went over the PowerPoints that go along with this, but we didn't go over the chapter. I'm going to do that now, and I'll break away quite often to go back to Visual Studio to show you how the book and the software map up with one another. And guys, the other 2 of you, just so you know, Jeremiah's having microphone problems. He did email me that he could hear me, but he hasn't been able to talk with me, and that's fine. So chapter 1, starting on page 3, how to get started with Visual Studio. I'm not going to read this to you. All right, after the intro, we're going to take the tour. So a lot of this you've already seen. And then we'll go over how to test the project. All right, so an introduction to the .NET framework. The thing about these books is if you use a Muroc book, the page on the left-hand side is all text. The page on the right-hand side is a summary of what the text talked about, or it's going to be code. So you're going to end up, by the end of next week, you'd be able to build this if you wanted to. By the end of this week, you'd be able to build all of this without these 2 buttons in here because we're not going to talk about those yet. But you'd be able to build the rest of it and probably even get it to work. What we're going to be working on in here almost exclusively are Windows Forms applications. You can read that yourself. I'm not going to talk about it with you. We're not going to be using any WPF because that uses another language called XAML, and the Universal Windows Platform does as well. In fact, I probably shouldn't have even had you download that one, but it's totally fine. It's not going to hurt anything. So we're not doing ASP.NET. We're not doing ASP.NET Web Forms. We're not doing ASP.NET Core MVC. We're doing simple Windows Forms desktop applications. When we get to about the end of the semester, what I hope we'll be able to do is during the last week or so is to go in and build one of these so you can see what they're like. All right? We'll talk about that much later. So you saw this some of this stuff in earlier when we went out to the visualstudio.com site. We're using the community version, which is free, and we're using C# as our language. That's it. Visual Studio is what's known as an IDE or an integrated development environment. All right, which means that at least at times it'll guess what you want to do, and most of the time it'll be right. So I'll show you some shortcuts. All right. This we actually saw before. You saw this in the PowerPoints. This right here that's us. That's our program, etc. That's our computer down here. And in between these two, this is the .NET software, and this is how the .NET software communicates with your operating system. Do you have to know that? Not a bit. And that's all I'm going to ever say about it. If you want more, you can read in here. You can take a look at it. What we're going to be doing now is we're going to look at quickly the Visual Studio IDE, Integrated Development Environment. Now, rather than showing you this, let's actually bring it up, because there it is as well. Now, it looks different because what we have up here is we have what's known as a console application, which means it has no graphical interface. Since it has no graphical interface, you'll notice over here our toolbox doesn't show, because what tools do is they allow you to write things on the screen. We don't have anything to write on the screen. All right? So I'm going to just close that for now. We don't need it. Now, when I closed it, it went away. So if I want it to come back again, I can click View, and I can choose Toolbox, and boom, it's back again. All right? So don't worry about it. It's totally fine. There's no tools in there now. Let's go back to the book so you can see everything. So this is called our toolbox. By default, if you want it to stay on the screen when you're working on your forms, on your graphical user interface applications, you'll click that little stick pin right there. And you'll notice that previously it pointed to the left, but when you click on it, it clicks down, which means pin it to my screen, which means it won't go anywhere. Then if I wanted to make this interface right here, I'll do it from the bottom. I wanted to make this calculate button. I go and literally take my mouse, hold down on the left mouse button, click where it says button, and drag it right there. And once I let go, I'd have a button. It wouldn't say calculate, it would say button or button 1. And if I did it again, so if I clicked on there, held down, and moved that over, I'd have another button. Another way I can make these is I could just double click on where it says button, but then it puts it way up in the upper left-hand corner. So this is called my toolbox. This area here is called my form designer. This is my form where I make my GUI or my graphical user interface. If I have errors, they're going to appear down here. This is both my error window and it's what's called my debugging window. Don't worry about that right now. We'll have a whole chapter on it at a later time. All right. This over here is called the Solution Explorer. This shows you all the files you have in your project. Most of these files you'll never want to touch. In fact, things like under properties and dependencies, don't ever touch those. They're system files. All right. Touching them and making changes can break your program. So again, the Solution Explorer is kind of like a file explorer that shows you all the different things in your project or in your solution. And here is your properties window. We haven't even talked about that yet. We will in just a bit. Now, I don't expect you to remember those. It's totally fine. All right? It's not a big thing whatsoever. The only other thing I want to mention, I said it earlier, but I want to show you it again. I'm going to jump back here. And what happened before to John was when he started his, I don't know if it looked exactly like this, but his Solution Explorer wasn't showing, and probably his properties window wasn't showing. So you click on File, on View, and if you choose View and you go up about 4 down, Solution Explorer, it brings it back up. If you click on View again and you go down near the very bottom and you click on Property Window, boom, it goes down there. All right. So let's see. I wanted to show you something else here while we're here. If you go into, I don't remember how to do it right now, so I don't want to waste your time. But if you go up here under Tools and Options, there are things you can change. If you don't want the color theme to be the way it is, so if I wanted it to be dark, I could go here, and you can see then, once I do that, how it changes. That doesn't seem to show very well when I make these tapes, so I'm going to go back, and I'm going to change it back again to light. But that's one place you can change it. You can also come in and under your options, you can change your default font type, you can change the font size, and there's a lot of stuff you can change in here. I'll show you that, just not right now. All right? Okay. So, I quickly explain the components that are there. When you create an application and you run it, that application is what's known as being compiled. The language that we used to write our program earlier, our program looked like this. And I don't know about you if you'd exactly agree, but pretty much it's just pure English. You may or may not understand yet what string means and write line and read line, but you can read this. It's English-like. That said, the only thing that the computer understands is what's called machine language, zeros and ones. So once we write our program and we click this right here, and we look at it and it runs on our screen and it says gross pay 1,000, what is happening during that time is this. It is compiling our program into object code that the computer understands. Now there's more to it than that, but if you understand that much, you're totally fine. If you want more, again, you can go and read in here. Totally fine. All right. So we came in, and once we first came in and started our project, we had a screen that looked like this once we brought up Visual Studio. Just to show you, I can have more than one version of Visual Studio running. So I'm going to open up another one. So Jeremiah, especially for you, this is more of what your program is going, or your system will look like when you bring it up. You won't have all this stuff because these are all projects I've already created. But you will want to come in here and click Create a New Project. And then you'll want to come up in here and type in the word console. Many of the first projects we create will be console-based. And there's about 5 or 6 that come up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We want console app.NET framework, and we want the one that says C#. So you single click on it, and it makes it blue, and then you click Next. Then it says, okay, what do you want to call this project that we're about to create? So I'm going to get rid of this right away, but I'm going to call this Test 01. I know I can't make this any bigger. I'm sorry. So it said Test 01, but it also made a solution named Test 01. And if you look back at this, our project is created inside of a solution. One solution can have one or more projects. So by default, when I created this new one, it made my project and my solution name the same thing. I want my project name to be Test01, but I only want my solution to be called Test. Now they've got different names. What does that mean? I'll show you in a second. But I'm going to click here. Mine is set where I want to save this, but yours will be set to some file, some folder called repos. I'm going to click here, and I'm going to choose my desktop, which is where I am. So I'm going to choose my desktop, and you can see it says it there. And then I'm going to choose Select Folder. So now it changed it to the desktop. And when I click Create, what I have just done, and they did this before themselves, but we just created a new solution called Test that has a single project in it called Test01. All right? You'll notice that all of these are gray, which means we're not using any of them. So boom, they're gone. This name right here, Test01, should always be the same as our project name. The internal class program we're not going to talk about now. We'll get to it later. But where we're going to write everything, when we write a console program at the start, we're going to put it inside of main. So the first thing we did was we came in here and we typed in system.console.writeline, and we typed in hello C#. That's all we put in with a semicolon on the end, and then we typed in system.console.readline and made it empty. All right, and then we saved it by going File, Save All, and then up here we click this green arrow that says Start, and then what it showed on our screen, and you'll see it in a minute, was Hello C#. All right, not doing anything else. That's all we did. And then we closed this by just clicking that X. And then we said, there's a shortcut if you don't want to type in system.console. Now, if I remove that, I'm going to get errors because I have to put a shortcut in there. If you remember earlier, we had these things in here that said using. I'm going to add a new one that wasn't in there previously that says using static system.console. And notice as soon as I do, those errors go away. So now all I have to do is write in there write line or read line. I don't need system.console. All right? So that's what we've done. Then we came in and we added to the program. Let me just steal it from where we'd done it before just to make it easier. So let me copy that. So we removed this and replaced it with this. Now, again, this might make no sense to you, and it's totally okay. But what these things are up here is I have created 5 what are called variables. And a variable is a container, so it's something that holds data. And it can change when the program is running. Its contents can vary. That's why we put the name in variable. All right? The first 2 are both of type string, which means they hold whatever we put in there is just a collection of characters. So had I changed this to 40.0, that's not the number 40. First name holds the string 40.0. That has no arithmetic value to it by default. All right? So we've got 2 strings. One that represents the first name, one that represents the last name. And I filled them up with my first name and my last name. Had I put nothing in there, they would now hold what's called the empty string, which means there's nothing in there. It's also, and I think it's not going to give me an error here, I can also put in here, and you guys haven't seen this before, the word null. All right? And what null means is unknown. If the class that you're in right now with me, if this is the first class you've ever taken at Rankin, and if I said to you, John, what's your GPA? And you said, how the heck should I know? I just started. Well, it's not 0, because that would mean that you flunked everything. Your grade point average, your GPA would be unknown. So if you don't know the value of something, you can initialize it to null, like I did right here. All right. But if I want to make it a true string, it goes within double quotes. And Michael, unlike JavaScript, you cannot use just single quotes here. That means something else. All right, so I've got two strings, one for my first name, one for my last name. Then I've got three variables that are of type double. Double means that it can hold a fractional component. If I made this an int is a whole number. So notice I get an error now because it can't hold a decimal component. But I could do that. I don't want to do that. Now, since we're working with payroll, I had all of you use doubles, but we could have also used in here decimal. But notice when I put that in, I get another error. Because if you're using decimal, you've got to let the system know it's a decimal by putting an M in there. And it can be an uppercase or a lowercase m. All right, now notice it doesn't like this because I'm trying to use both a decimal and a double. And it doesn't like the way we're mixing here. But if I change this one to a decimal, all right, still doesn't like it. But if I make this one a decimal, now everything, and I need the M there, is hunky-dory. All right, and if I save this and run it again, it's going to look exactly like it did before. All right, so no change. That's pretty much what we did, all right, before you got here, Jeremiah, just so you're aware of that, all right? I'm just trying to get you totally up to speed here. All right, so, again, if you want to know things like what's different between the community, I'm not going to go over this stuff with you unless there's something really relevant in there. You know, that's for you to read, all right? So, how to open and close an existing project. Well, let's talk about that. So I'm going to go and I'm going to go to this test one I just made right here. I'm going to make sure I've saved it. So I'm going to do a file, save all, and I'm going to literally just close it. And I'm going to show you two ways now that I can open it back up. It's closed. The one that's open now is the other one that we created before. All right. So I want to show you two ways that you can reopen that project. The first is I can right mouse click on here, start up a new session of Visual Studio 2022. And what you'll notice is there's test. So I can click on that. Boom, it's open. That's probably the easiest way of doing it. It'll take a second to load, but it's all in there. There it is. I'm going to close it again. And I'm going to show you yet another way you can do it. This is the way we used to have to do it. It still works, but I don't recommend you do it this way. That is, you go to the test folder, you double click on it, and you've got a file that's got the name test.sln. That, when you double click on that, it opens up the solution file. It says, what do you want to open it with? Well, of course I want Visual Studio 2022. I click OK, and that'll open it up as well. Now, for Michael and for John, you didn't see that previously. I'm just showing you how to do it now. But you're not going to be asked, at least on a hands-on test, how to do that. All right, we're going to go over talking about the written tests in a little bit. All right, so I'm going to leave that up now so it is up. All right. So again, if you want more on that than you think I've shown you, there's opening it up, clicking the solution file. You can look in there. They've got more on project files, on solution files, etc. than I've given you. I'm just trying to show you the easiest way I can think of doing things. All right. This, again, is your form designer right here. I already showed you this, but again, notice this is annotated. So here's your toolbox. There's your form designer. There's your solution explorer. There's your properties window. This is your toolbar. Now, if you look on here, because we didn't look at this before, but I'm going to show it to you now. This is our toolbar. All right? And if you notice, if I go into a blank area over here, blank area, and I right mouse click, it shows a bunch of other toolbars that I can load. Right now I've got the standard toolbar and the text editor. But if I come in here and let's just say I wanted to do, I don't know, application insights, just the first one. If I click there, it now added that. onto what I had. I don't want that, so I'm going to click on it again and remove the checkbox. But that's how you can add more things to it. So this is your, basically, your toolbar window. Virtually anything you can do with a toolbar, you can also do by using a menu option. And most of the menu options have also got shortcuts over here. Not all, but most of them. All right. If you want more than I'm giving you on what these things do, feel free to read that. All right, so how to use the code editor, that's where we jumped in, and we just started using it. Now you'll notice, because you didn't see this before, all right, got some stuff here in green. Let's pretend for just a moment in this program, you know, we don't want to get rid of these 2 lines of code. But what we want to do is we want to temporarily comment them out. So I'm going to show you 2 ways to do this, the hard way and the easy way. Actually, I'm going to show you 3 ways to do it. Probably the middle way is I can come in here and put in 2 forward slashes, and now it's a comment. 2 forward slashes, whoops, sorry, and now it's a comment. Okay, that's one way. There's nothing wrong with doing it that way. I can also come in, I can also come in here, and above this I can put a slash with an asterisk, /*. You notice how everything turns green. Now I can come in here and underneath that, I can put in a star with a slash. That's how you typically do a multi-line comment. So a single line is 2 slashes, everything to the right is automatically commented out. A multi-line is //. All right, so that said, let's go back and remove them. And now I want to show you the easiest way. All right, and that is to highlight both these lines. All right, and then come in here and get out of there. I want that out of here. All right, and then come in here, and you'll notice that if I take my mouse and I put it way over, almost right below the word search, and I put my mouse there, it says comment out all highlighted or selected lines. If I click it, it highlights it. If I click the one next to it, so if I click it, it comments it. If I click the one next to it, it uncomments it. All right? And again, there's multiple ways of doing the same thing. I just showed you 3 ways to comment. I'm never going to use that /* again by default. If the system puts it in for me, then I'll use it. If you say, what do you mean? Just stay tuned and we'll talk about that in a bit. All right. So, the Solution Explorer I already mentioned. That's where it shows your different files. All right, so that's where it shows your different system files are in there. All right. Notice the project, the solution is in there, the project is in there, etc. And as I said, most of these files, not all of them, but most of these files you'll never want to actually touch. They're system files. They shouldn't be touched. All right. So what do I mean by that? Well, let's go back and look at this. So in here is this is my project, test 1. So in here, you'll notice I've got a thing called properties and assembly info. This is all system stuff I should never touch. So I'm just going to close it. Here are references, and you'll notice there's a bunch of different reference files. So I'll just open up one of them. Here's the system reference file, and there it is. I don't want to touch that. So again, I'm just going to close it. And I've also got this app config, which I accidentally opened up before. That we're actually going to use later on in the course with databases. Don't worry about it right now. All right. The only one that we'll want to work with, the only one that we'll want to actually open when we're working on a console app is this program.cs file, which is the one that we've been working with. All right. I mentioned before that you can dock or move around these windows. And let's see, do they show in here how to reset them? You can use the reset window layout command. Yeah, I know where that is, but you can use the reset window. So I don't know where reset is, but let's see if I can find it. Tools. Somewhere in here, and is it under customized? No. Tools. There it is. So I'm gonna see if I can screw this up and fix it. If I can't, well, then I'm gonna hose myself. But I'm gonna grab this and I'm gonna move it over here. Why? Just because I can. I'm gonna grab this and I'm gonna move it over here. So they're both dockable, so I can move them around. Well, I don't want them there, and I can move them back in again, but I want the system to do it for me. So if you move these around and then you decide you want them to go back to where they were to begin with, you click on Tools, you go to Import and Export Settings, which is the third one from the bottom, and you go back to Reset All Settings right there. And then you click Next, and it says, do you want to save my current settings? No, I don't. So I just say no, just reset them. And I click Next, and I click Finish, and come on, and click Close, and boom, they're back again. So one more time, if you do move these and you decide you don't want them to be moved, you want them to go back, so your toolbar or toolbox is over here, your Solution Explorer is here with the Properties window underneath it, you go to Tools, Import and Export Settings, Reset All Settings, you go to Next, you go to No, just reset my settings, you go to Next, you go to Finish, and you close, and that resets them. All right? Okay. And if you forget that, just ask. It's not a problem. All right. How to change the version? We don't want to. I'm not even going to go over that. All right. I showed you that a little earlier, but you don't have to do that. It's fine the way it is. How to test? Well, I do want to say something to you, and this may or may not make sense to you right now. But right now, when I'm working here, I'm in what's known as design mode. What does that mean? That means I'm designing my program. If I click over here, and don't worry about what this means, we're going to have a whole chapter on it later. But I'm going to go and click right here. This is called the gutter area where you can see this. And I'm going to click in the gutter area and it'll turn cyan colored. Now I just set what's called a breakpoint. Now notice what happens when I run my program. Okay? It's stopped right here. I'm now in break mode. I can stop the program, but now notice all the code up to this point is run. So if I go to hours, it says it's set to 40. If I go to rate, it says it's set to 25. If I go to gross, it says it's set to 1,000. But it has not executed this line yet. So if I want to execute that line, I click continue again, and boom, there's my gross pay. So that is how I set a breakpoint if I want to debug the program. To make the breakpoint go away, it's the same way as the way you create it. You click there and it's gone. You cannot set breakpoints on blank lines. It makes no sense. Or on commented lines. Only on lines that are actually executable. All right? Okay. All right. So, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. We're going to get back in just 1 second. We're going to be exactly where you guys just were. And I realize now we've gone over all of chapter 1. All right? So, you want to know more about it, you look at the terms, right? You don't have to do any of the exercises that are in here, but if you want to, the exercises in the book, you've got the completed answers if you are asked to do something. They're actually shown in your book. This one is just clicking through and trying to do this and trying to do that. All right? Chapter 2, which we'll go into tomorrow, will be we're gonna start all over again, and we're gonna design a Windows Forms application from scratch. All right? So what I'm gonna do, and now Jeremiah, again, I realize I can't hear you, and I get that. That's okay. But I'm going to assume that you have C#. You've got Visual Studio 2022 downloaded. If you don't, you'll have to watch the earlier tape or the earlier part of this tape. All right, but I'm assuming that you have it. So I'm going to start a brand new project, and I'm just going to recreate this. All right, that we've done right here. So I'm going to just take it from the top. This is what we did as a class. All right, in fact, I've got this thing called payroll here. I'm going to literally, you guys have got it. You don't have to recreate this, but I'm going to remove that. So I just threw it in the garbage, so it's not there anymore. So I'm going to start Visual Studio all over again. We're going to do a little bit more, then we're going to take our last break. All right? So I'm going to start up Visual Studio 2022. I suggest that you pin this to the taskbar. Otherwise, you'll have to come over here and type in Visual Studio 2022 and click it here. But if you go here and you right mouse click, you can choose, mine says unpin from taskbar, so now it's gone. But if I choose it again and choose pin to taskbar, there it is. All right, so I'm going to click on that to start. And I'm going to do this all over again. Now, since I did call this payroll already, even though I removed it, sometimes the system files might still be there. So I am going to create a new project, but I'm just going to call it payroll with my 3 initials. All right, hopefully that makes enough sense, Michael and John, to you. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to create a new project. Again, I'm going to come up here and I'm going to choose the word, type in the word console. Later, we're going to change this to Windows Forms, but don't worry about that right now. So under console, I want the console app, .NET Framework, and C#. Now it's highlighted. I want to click Next. You'll notice that by default, it's created a folder for me called Source Repos. All right, I don't want it to be there. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change my project name to Payroll JPS 01. JPS are my initials, so you could put yours in if you wanted to. All right, then I'm going to come over to here and I'm going to change it because I want this to go to my desktop. So it says desktop here, and I'm going to click select folder, and it changed to desktop. All right, and you'll notice that by default, my project name and my solution name are exactly the same. I don't want the 01. I want a solution called Payroll JPS. So my project name says Payroll, my 3 initials 01. My location is my desktop, and my solution name is Payroll with my 3 initials. Again, do not put in your project name or solution name, do not put blank spaces. Do not put special characters like commas, parentheses, etc. So now that I've done all that, I'm going to click Create. And that's going to start up. There's my new solution called Payroll JPS. You'll notice I now have a folder over here that's called Payroll JPS. There it is. All right. And that's got the same types of files I just showed you. Now, these files over here are gray. And if I take my mouse and I put it over here, I'll get a light bulb. I might have to highlight them, but I'll get a light bulb. There it is. And it says, you're not using these files. So if I don't want them, I can remove them manually, or I can click right here and remove them. But I do want to add a new one of my own, because if this is what we did to start with, again, we just said system.console.writeline hello C#. So that's the first thing we did. And unlike JavaScript, Michael, all of these lines have to end with a semicolon. Must. And then we did a system.console.readline. Semicolon. That was our first program. All right, so we did a file, save all. You can also do a Control S. And I clicked the Start button. And once it came up and it ran, we see our window. This is our console window. It's taking a bit. I don't know why, but it is. There it is. And it says hello C#. So that was the first one we wrote. Then I said it would be nice to not have to write this system.console all the time. But if I remove it, the system doesn't know where system.console is. So we can come up to the top here and put in our own using statement, which says using static system.console. And you might be wondering too, why is the word static there? Well, it's also there because it's here. Don't worry about it. We'll talk about static in a later class. But now, notice we don't need the system.console. You still could put it in. You don't get an error, but it's superfluous. In other words, it's unneeded. Or we could just put in this, and it would work. All right, well, it should work, but it doesn't like that. It says does not exist. Okay, if we want to do that, then we've got to come in and add one of those using statements that we removed before, which is using system. Now we get that. So I've just shown you a bunch of different ways. The easiest way is to do it the way I just showed you last. Or first, I guess now. Using static system.console. This is case sensitive here, and then we don't need the system.console down here. So that's the first thing that we did. Then we came in and we went in and we added our, whoops, I guess I did remove it, but that's fine. I'll put it back real quick. We said string, first name, and usually we'd say it like this. I may or may not have done it like that before, but it's okay either way. And Jeff, string, last name. Notice the Intellisense here is clicking in. It says, oh, you probably want a last name. So if I hit tab right here, it put it in for me. All right, and this will be Scott. I don't want another string. I want a double with hours, and I want that to be equal to 0.0, another double. And notice that when I put that in, it says minutes. It says, oh, you worked with hours. So if I chose that one and I put in another line, it would think I wanted to put in seconds. But I'm not working with time. I'm working with hours worked. So I'm going to change that from double, and I'm going to make this rate equal 0.0. And finally, I'm going to have a double gross. Now, before I did this, I said equal hours times rate. And it works just fine. Now, I should change this to 40 and this to something like 25. Now it'll give me 1,000. If I don't want to do that, I could have done this and then come in here and said gross equal hours times rate. And you'll notice there's no errors. What's the difference? If I do just this, just that, it's called declaring a variable. So I'm letting the system know I'm declaring a variable called gross, and I'm also setting its variable type to be a double. It does not have a value right now. It has no value. So again, and I showed you this before, I could come in and give it a value of 0. Oops. Or I could come in and give it a value of no, which means unknown. All right, I guess it doesn't even like null for that. Okay, so it doesn't like that, so okay, then we won't. But I could give it no value, or I could give it a value like equals 0.0. Usually, I'm going to do it the other way, this way. And it's just because it's less typing. Now, you can't always do that because this is called right there. That's declaring a variable. This is initializing the variable. So when we did it earlier, when I broke it up over 2 lines, in one line we were declaring the variable, in another line we were initializing the variable. But all the lines now, we are both declaring the variable and initializing it on the same line. All right. So now I'm just going to come in here and do what we did before, which is right line. And we'll say something like gross and our gross. And if that works correctly, it should come back with gross and then 1,000. And we do a read line because otherwise it's going to just scroll right off the screen. So I've done all that. Okay, everything's hunky-dory, just fine. All right, so I did a file, save all, and then I came back up over here, and my program was actually still running from earlier. That wasn't good, so let me stop the run by clicking that little red thing there. So here it is. So now I'm running it, and notice it says gross 1,000. Everything's fine. It all worked. No problem. So this is what we did before the break. But then I said, okay, we'll start making a couple changes here. But this code is pretty much all good. So I highlighted all of it, and you can do an edit, copy, or you can do a Control C, or you can highlight all of it. Right mouse click and choose copy, whatever your way of copying is. So I've now copied all of that to the clipboard. But then, just so you got a little practice, we created a second project in our solution. So we came over here to where it says project, single clicked on it, then right mouse clicked on it, chose add, new project. We want this to be another console, but we want it to be a .NET Framework console app, C#. Click there, and now I'm going to make payroll, try to spell it right, payroll JPS 02. I've already got a 01. It already has the location set for me. So I click create, and now I've got 2 copies. My original copy up here, which was copy 1, and this one, which is copy 2. All right? So that's all fine and dandy. So here's payroll 2. All right? I don't know why it's giving me that with all the stuff in there already, but it is. So let's see. What I'll do right now is I'm going to close this, and I'm going to try to open it again. There it is. So that's the stuff we had before. So now I want to copy in what I did earlier. So there it is. But notice what's back. Those 2 error messages. Why? Because I want to come up here, remove these, and type in using static system dot console. Okay? Now, just for everybody's benefit, tomorrow when we go back and rebuild this program as a GUI app, you won't need this because we won't be using the words read line and write line. All right? So that's what we've got. And hopefully, everything I've done makes sense. All right? Even if you weren't able to do all of it, hopefully what we've done makes sense to you. All right. So this is where we left off after the break. But every single time I run this program, it's got the same inputs. It's got Jeff for the first name. It's got Scott for the last name. And it's got 40 for the hours. And it's got 25 for the rate. Since I'm multiplying hours by rate, it's always going to be the same gross. And it's always going to write the same thing. So with our second iteration of this, I'll tell you what, I'll write a couple things. We'll take one last break in just a moment. All right? So I'm going to come back here and do this. I'm going to take my first name and I'm going to set it to the empty string, which means I don't know what it is. I'm going to do the same thing with the last name. I'm going to set my hours to 0. I'm going to set my rate to 0. And I'm even going to set my gross to 0. And I mentioned earlier to the people who were in class earlier that if I want all this stuff to line up like little soldiers, so then I got to manually go back in there and do that. I don't care if you have it lined up or don't have it lined up. Do it whatever way you want. All right, if you like that better, then do it that way. All right, so now if I run it, it's going to say gross 0 because it'll be multiplying 0 by 0. Well, that isn't very good. Just to prove that to you, I'll do a file, save all, and I'll run the program again. And you'll see it's got gross 1,000. Why did it give me 1,000? Because I screwed up. I'm running the old program. Even though I've got the new one on the screen, I'm running the old one. To tell it we want it to run this one, we've got to click on the project, then right mouse click and choose Set as Startup Project. Now it's going to run payroll 2, and you should notice that it just says gross 0. Now, I don't expect you to remember all this. I've thrown a boatload of stuff at you in one day. I get that. So guess what? When we start tomorrow, I'm going to act like you don't know how to do any of this. And I'm going to probably do that for the first week. And then I'm going to assume you get acclimated and that everything makes enough sense. All right? And I'll tell you what, it's 11:07. Let's take a shorter break. Let's go to 11:15, and we're going to write another couple versions of this, okay? And then we'll call it a class period. So it's 11:07. Tell you what I'll do is I'll come in here, and again, I'll start a new 10-minute timer. So here we go. We'll start up again at 11:17, and that'll be it for the period. All right, I'm going to start back up again. Jonathan, not John S., Jonathan D., looks like he was trying to join. I don't know if he was able to join or not. It told me where to click. I clicked it, but it's not showing him as being in here. So I don't know what the problem is. All right, and I apologize for that, Jonathan, if you're trying to get in and can't, because I don't know what to do. All right, but hopefully you're going to be able to watch. Otherwise, you'll have to, I guess, look at the video. All right, what I want to do as we finish up here for the day is two things. First, I want to rewrite this program, and I want to make it interactive. So in other words, I want us to ask the user for some information. All right, plus, right now the only thing we're printing out is the gross, and I want to print out not only the gross, but the first name, the last name, the hours, the rate, and the gross, all that. And we want to format it so it looks kind of nice. All right, so I'm going to do all that right now. Now, you don't have to do this, but let's assume if you were a professional programmer, and I was for several years, people don't use nice variable names like first name, last name, hours, rate. You would very easily could have gotten a program where that was F, L, H, R, and G. So sometimes what you'll see in here is people will put a comment off to the side here that says, something like first name. Now, it's a little bit redundant here because I used good names, but you get the idea, hopefully. All right. Okay, so I am going to put in some comments here so you know what we're doing all the time. So I'm going to say, and you don't have to put this in. You can if you want to. Have user input first name. So in other words, we don't want it to just be your name all the time. So we're going to put in here write, not write line like we did before, but write, and we're going to say, please enter first name. And I'll put a blank space there. Okay? All right. Now, if I ran the program now and I put another read line in here afterwards, what would happen is it would just say, please enter first name. But I want to be able to hold that value, right? I want to hold it. So I want to take my first name and I want to set it equal to read line. And if you get that, that's pretty darn good. Because what this is saying is, here we are going to put the message on the screen that says, please enter first name. And here, whatever we read in, we're assigning it right there to first name. So notice if I do come in here and do a file, save all, and I run it again, it comes in and says, please enter first name. And as soon as I put in Jeff and hit enter, it immediately says gross 0 because we haven't told it to do anything else. All right, we're going to do that right now. So, nice thing is, I can highlight this code right here, do a Control-C to copy and a Control-V to paste. And now I also want to input my last name. And I want to make sure it's last name that I set equal to. And you'll notice now that both first name and last name don't have those underlines anymore like they did. Okay? Now, when you do something like this and you do a read line, whatever you put in there, it's automatically a string. It's automatically a string. Why am I telling you that? Because I'm going to come out there now and I'm going to do this. Now I'm going to say, please have user input hours worked. So I can come in and say this, please enter hours worked. But if I come in here now and say hours, for right there. If I come in and say hours, I'm going to get an error. Because it's attempting to take a string and put it into a number variable. It doesn't matter what I'm going to put in there. It's what we're trying to do is wrong. So what I have to do is I have to tell it to convert what we're going to put in there and convert it into a double. Now, that's both a good thing and a bad thing. I'm going to show you both in just a moment. So I'm going to say this. I'm going to say convert dot to double read line. What doesn't it like? What did I do wrong? Convert dot to double. We'll fix it in just a second. So let's see. Oh, it does not exist in the current. That's good. Good. It says I'm getting an error here because it doesn't know where convert is. So notice if I come here now and I take my mouse and I click where it says show potential fixes, and I click there, it says you need a using system statement. That's one of the ones we removed before. So now I just added this. And now notice no more error. All right. So, and I will tell you too, all of this code I'm going to be making available to you. So if you want it and take a look at it, etc., you'll be able to. So rate. Whoops, sorry. So now, no underlines. All right. Now notice the only thing that we're actually writing out is the gross. We're not right now, we're not writing out the value of rate or hours or last name. That's why they're all still gray. And they're gray here. All right. But now we can come in and say gross equal hours times rate. Okay, that's all fine. Okay, so notice now if I run this, so I'm going to save this and run it again. Please enter first name, Jeff. Please enter last name, Scott. Please enter hours worked, 40. Please enter hourly rate. Let's say I got a raise, 30. Gross 1,200. It all works. Everything's great. Except, what happens now when I do this? All right. Jeff, Scott, and I put in here 45, but then I accidentally put in a comma, which is illegal. All right. And now I'm going to put in here hello, and I hit enter. What's going to happen is I'm going to get what's called an exception. See that? I guess it didn't even mind the comma. I don't know why, but it didn't. And it's telling me, hey, the input string was not in the correct format. So in other words, it's not allowing us to put invalid data into the system. It's not allowing us to do that. You're going to learn later on how to make sure that our data is valid all the time. All right. In fact, later you will even have an assignment where, you know, if it doesn't come in all validly, you'll get points taken off. So all that worked. Now, one more thing, and then a couple more things, and then we'll be done with this. First thing is, it does the gross, but wouldn't it be kind of nice? Wouldn't it be kind of nice if the gross had a dollar sign in it, 1,000.00 for 1,000? I think it would. So I can tell it, even though this is a number, I want you to format it as a string and put it in currency format. All right. What doesn't it like here? Oh, I'm missing a parenthesis. There we go. So notice the difference. So now if I come in here and I put in Jeff, Scott, 30 hours at 30, let's say $300 an hour. Now notice that it's formatted. 9,000, etc. All right. Now, you all know this already, but I'm going to show it to you anyway. I could come in here and do all of this. Let's do this. So I could put in here, for example, first name, and I don't have to do a toString because it's already a string. And I could type in here first name. All right. And then I could put in here last name, and last name. And then I could come in here, and I could make this look a little nicer, so I'll put in here hours. Whoops. And I will put a toString in here, but I don't want that to be currency. I want that to be a number, so I'll put N2 for 2 decimal places. Then I'm going to come in here and put in rate, and I want to leave that just like, whoop, that's got to be here, hours. And now this has got to be rate, and I do want that to have a currency symbol, and I'll leave my gross in here. This will work just fine. Okay, so let's save this and let's run it again. Jeff, let's put in somebody else. Mary Jones, let's say that she worked 25 hours and she makes $100 an hour. Now we've got all that. All right, now it's pretty much complete. Now I'll show you a little trick, because when I say it's a trick, it's not in your book. All right, and that is, before I print all this stuff out, I'm going to type in here clear. Should have been a capital C. So just clear. All right. You probably have already figured out what it does, but just in case you haven't, let's run it again. And again, I'll come in here and put in Bill Smith. He worked 45 hours and he makes $55 an hour. Notice it cleared the screen first. You don't have to do that, but it just made it a little nicer to look at. All right, and the last thing I want to show you on this particular program, all right, the last thing I want to show you is, okay, this is all fine. What if I don't want to write this as 5 different write lines? What if I want to write that all as one big, hairy write line statement? I could, but then it would be real long and it would stretch out here someplace. But let me show you another way we can do this. So I'm going to make another string in here, and I'm just going to call it output. With the name I call it doesn't matter. And I'm going to set it equal to, the empty string. And again, you'll notice how by default the IDE pushed it over, so I'll have to tab it over if I want it to line up with everything else. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to change this around a little bit here. So I'm going to say output equals, and I've got all this stuff that I put in here before. And this is going to be really, really, really butt ugly in just a minute. I'm warning you. All right. So now I want to add to that output. So I'm going to say output plus equals, and now I'm going to put in the next one. Whoops. And I'm going to do it again. All right, I need an extra parenthesis on these, or remove that parenthesis. Remove that, and remove that. All right, it's still not going to print, but now I can say write line output. Okay, now what you're going to notice, and you may or may not have figured this out already, but I want you to see this, and that is I'm going to run this. Whoops, I'm going to just run the program. Brian Wilson, 40. Well, now everything's run together and it looks pretty doggone ugly. And that's because when I do it this way, I have to put a special character on the end called a new line character. So I have to add to each one of these \n, which is like what would happen if you hit the return key. So I'll put it there, and there, and there, and there, and I don't really need one for the end. I can put it there, it won't hurt anything, and there. All right, now let's run it one more time. Mike Johnson, 30, 40, and there it is. All right, so what have we done today? I want to go back and I want to review that. And that is, we went over the syllabus, we went over the online class procedures, we talked a little about work ethic, and I explained some of the people who work at Rankin that you may want to get a hold of. All right? We installed Git on our machine. Git is something we haven't used yet. GitHub is something we haven't used yet. We will start using it tomorrow. I didn't want to throw all that on you on the first day. You might feel overwhelmed as it is. So, we installed Git and we installed GitHub on our machine. We also installed C# on our machine. All right? Tomorrow, I will go over what a GitHub repo is. Then we went into our Muroc book and we looked at the PowerPoint slides for Chapter 1. All right? And then we went over Chapter 1 of the text. We just finished writing a couple programs. Now, we didn't do the GUI. We'll do that tomorrow. Don't worry about it. A couple more things I want to mention. Yes, we did review this today. And this is just another thing if you're interested in it. If you're interested, great. If you're not, guess what? Totally fine. But I want to show this to you, if I can find it. And there it is. All right. There is a thing online that has a lot of free different IT books. I'm always in favor of giving you way too much information, and then you can sift through it and figure out what's good, what's not good, what you want to use, what you don't want to use, etc. All right? So, if you go out to here, make this bigger. And again, you don't need the HTTPS. If you go out to goalkicker.com, C# book, they have a free PDF that's over 700 pages in length. So if you don't like the way our book is written, what's nice about this is if you look here, it has 164 chapters in it. What does that mean? That means each chapter is 4 to 5 pages long. So it's a little bite-sized chunk of information if you're interested in that. If you're not, forget I ever said it. But goalkicker.com has got IT books about all sorts of stuff. I'm even going to recommend 2 of them to my afternoon class that's going to start in a half an hour. All right? Okay. So, as we finish this up, let me open up this. Again, tomorrow I'll show you how to get into this GitHub repo, but this is the stuff I sent you. What is it? This is every one of the written tests you're going to be expected to do for this class. So if I open up one, here's the one for Chapter 1. A desktop application runs where? So, for instance, let's say, this one seems to make sense to me, on a user's computer. So I would either circle C or write C or do whatever. All right? So those are, you're going to have, for each chapter, those are the written tests. They'll be part of what will be due every Sunday, except for this Sunday. All right, so there's your written tests. Here's the student download. This is everything that gets provided by Muroc itself. So these are all the applications that are in the book. This is the database stuff that's much later in the book. And these are the exercises that are at the end of the chapters. Notice the starts and the solutions. All right. These are all the PowerPoint slides that they give us as instructors, but I made available for you. For instance, I went through Chapter 1 today. All right. These will be the labs that you'll have to do, and these will be the homeworks you have to do. So, for example, notice there's no homework for Chapter 1. Okay? But is there a lab for Chapter 1? I don't remember. No. So you've got no homework or lab for Chapter 1. But at the end of this week, on Friday, one of the things I'll do is I'm going to go over the Chapter 3 labs with you. All right? It looks like there's 1 or 2 of them that you'll have to write here. All right? And I will also go over on the homework. All right? And the homework, you'll have to come out here because it's called extra exercises. So this will be what you'll have to do for Chapter 2. It'll be design a simple form. All right? And if you say, I don't know how to do that, that's what tomorrow is about. What we will end up doing for the first chapter is we will do much of the homework and labs as a class. And we'll even do the first written test as a class. So you can get in the groove, so to speak, of what I'm looking for and how you should do it. Hopefully that made at least some sense to you. All right? So what am I missing here? Anything? And then, okay, again, that's everything that's in there. Now, again, this is more for you, Jeremiah, because I don't know exactly where you stand in here, but I did mention to the class, in fact, I'm going to do this. Let's see. What is that? It's Control-Shift-N. Control-Shift-N. All right, I'm going incognito here, which means I'm not signing in as me. So I'm going to go out here. So again, if I go out to GitHub download, so again, if you haven't done this yet, this is what you're going to want to do. I'm sorry, try that again. If you go, the first thing you should do here is go to Git download and go to the first one that comes up. Downloads, you should click the one for Windows. You should have a Windows machine and choose every default option. So it'll save it in here, and then when you open it up, just choose every option, default option. Then you should go in and go out to github.com, and yours should look like this. All right? So you'll want to do a sign up, and it'll say enter your email. So I'm just going to put in here hello at, this isn't real, goodbye.com, for example. All right? So I'm putting that in, and I'm saying continue. Invalid or already taken. Okay, so some random guy at gmail.com. Let's just say. Hopefully that isn't taken. All right. Then it asks for a password. Make sure you either write this down if you don't remember your passwords, all right, or do something with it. Put it, someplace where you can get back to it. I'm going to type in hello 123 with a comma. All right. And it says password is in a list of commonly used passwords for other. Okay. So I'll put in here a bunch of other commas. Okay. And it says I got a strong password. So I will continue, and it's letting me know all this stuff. So this is where when it asks for your username, I would like it if you put in your first initial, your last initial, your last name, and rank it. Now, if I click it now, it's going to say it's not available because that's mine. But if I come in here and say, so if it's some random guy, SR for some random guy, Rankin, that should be available. All right, says it is. So I click continue. All right. It says, would you like to receive product updates? That's your call. I'm going to stop right there because when I've done this in the past, adding another account to my account on this machine screws it up. But I just wanted to walk through with you the steps that you'll have to go through in order to actually create the account. All right. And the other thing I want to tell you quickly is, let's see, just close that. I think I mentioned this to you before, but I want to say it again. I'd rather say something twice than not at all. And I'm going to go here to the Visual Studio installer. All right. So community, if I wanted to modify it, so I've already told you guys what I wanted you to add. And that was, you get this by default, the core editor. I asked you to come in and add the ASP.NET and web development, the .NET desktop. This universal, I don't think we need. So I'm going to uninstall that right now. See, it's gone now. But you should do the Visual Studio Core Editor, the ASP.NET and web development, the .NET desktop development, and the data storage and processing. If you want to leave the one I just did, this universal, it's not going to hurt anything. But it did cut down my size from 9.85 gig to 7.48 gig. So about 2 gig is what that held. All right. Now I'm actually going to leave that. But for yours, then you'll just click. There'll be your button over here will say install. Just install it. I'll just leave it the way it is. It's not hurting anything. So last thing, promise. This is what we did today. Oops, this is what we did today. All right, you can look at that. If you think I forgot anything, let me know. We didn't develop any GUI. That's what we'll do tomorrow. All right, so tomorrow we were going to go, the first thing that we'll do, actually the second thing we'll do, is we're going to go over the PowerPoints for Chapter 2. Then we're going to go over Chapter 2, and we're going to do that in the guise of working on a program again. What I'm going to ask that you do, you don't have to turn it in. All right? But I'd like you to go back and see if you can, on your own, go back and basically redo this thing that we've done. Now, it doesn't have to be exactly like this. You know, you don't need first name, last name, hours. Just do some kind of a simple program, but have one or more strings, one or more doubles or ints, which are whole numbers. All right? And then ask the user to input something and do a simple calculation and then just output it. You know, it's like anything else. And Michael can identify with this because we've talked about this before. I am 65 years old. I have been trying to learn guitar off and on, more off, for about 45 years. I've had teachers tell me, you might as well give it up. My God, you're terrible, and other things. But I keep trying, and I'm with a teacher now who's my age. He's retired, and this is all he does as a sideline. But he keeps telling me, Jeff, I can tell when you practiced and when you have not practiced. The only way to get better at anything is to practice doing it, whether it's the guitar or it's writing programs like this. That's why I will give you the first 10 to 15 minutes at the beginning of class tomorrow to go back and try to rewrite this program or one similar to it. All right, and that should give you enough time that if you don't have Git or GitHub or C# loaded on your machine or installed, you should have time that you can come in and do that. Then, like I said, then we will come back in and we will go over the PowerPoints to Chapter 2 and Chapter 2 itself. And Chapter 2, I use a product here. It's not available to you guys. I'm sorry. I get it because I'm an instructor. That's called Red Shelf. And it allows me to basically bring up a PDF version like this. Now, this is actually a shorter chapter. All right, it'll talk about how to design a form, how to finish your design, etc. And just as a little quick preview as we finish up today, this is what we're going to do tomorrow, just so you know. All right, I'm going to come back into here where I just was, and I'm going to close this. I'm not going to save, or I'm not going to copy it. I'm not going to do anything. But in here, whoops, I guess I did close everything. I'm going to open up my payroll JPS again. All right. And I'm going to close this. I don't need it open, but I am going to come in. This is what we'll do first thing tomorrow. I'm going to click on the solution. I'm going to right mouse click. I'm going to choose Add Project. And this time, instead of choosing Console, I'm going to type in Windows Form. And notice there's a format, but I want the format for the .NET framework. C#, I'm going to click Next. I'm going to call this one Payroll JPS GUI 01. It's going to be housed in right where my other ones are. All right, and I'm going to click Next again, I guess. Oh, I clicked back instead of Create. All right, and I'm going to click that. And here's our form. Now notice that if I come in here and I do a view and I choose Toolbox, there it is. And I'll come in here just to show you. I'm not trying to, I'm just ending class, but I'm going to come in here and I'm going to put in a label for the first name, a label for the last name. Whoops, line it up a little bit here. A label for the hours, a label for the rate, a label for the gross. I'll put in text boxes for a bunch of these, for all of these really. All right, so it'll be a text box. And I'll move this over a little so it looks a little nicer. And I'll put in a couple buttons. Now, I'm doing this off the top of my head and very quickly on purpose. All right? And this is what you're going to learn to do tomorrow. Now, as of right now, when I run this, it's going to look pretty terrible. All right? Because it says label 1, label 2, etc. It says all that. But we'll play with it, make it look a lot nicer, put code in with these buttons. All right? And now when I click it, notice I've got a right mouse click on here and again choose Set as Startup Project. And then start it. And lo and behold, that's what we have. That's a GUI version of the program we just did. We're going to come back. We will spend a good hour and probably more on that because I'm going to show you some little intricacies, how to center things, how to play with fonts, how to play with styles, how to play with colors, etc. I want you to learn all that stuff from the get-go. When you are actually making your programs, I'm not going to ever say, make your background green. Make all the labels brown. I could care less. But some people like to go nutso with the color, with the font, etc. So that's what we'll do tomorrow. All right? So it is a couple minutes early. That's fine. Does anybody have any general questions on anything we went over today? Anybody?
I was going to ask if you could possibly put up the code that you wrote earlier for the Payroll 2 program.
Yes, I'll tell you what I'll do. I will, since we haven't really talked much about GitHub yet, I will take that particular, I'll take the whole folder, I'll zip it, and I'll email it to all of you.
Okay, perfect.
Okay? Any other questions? All right, other than that, and I know that one or two of you came in late, but as I mentioned, I'm going to be talking this afternoon with one of the instructors, and what he did last semester when COVID was really bad was he was meeting using Teams every day. So he knows a bunch of tricks that I have not learned yet. But we'll do the best we can with this. I think it'll work out fine. Just to be sure, and I mentioned this before, I have also taped this thing using a screen capture product that I have that's called Camtasia. You'll notice it's just about 3 hours and 15 minutes long. That'll be the entire thing. So what I will do is I will have a link for you later today to the presentation under Teams, and I will have a link on my YouTube channel to this in Camtasia. All right. Again, welcome to the class. Feel free to email me, jpscott@rankin.edu, with any questions you might have. All right. If I can help you with anything. Now, I'm not going to be able to help you much on your if you're taking online gen ed classes, but if you've got questions about them and you can't get a hold of the instructor, please let me know, and I'll see what I can do about that as well. Again, welcome to the class. You've made it through one day out of 80, so we'll pick it up here tomorrow. I'll see you then. Have a good day.
Thanks, Mr. Scott. Have a good one.
Thanks. You too.